Dinosaurs ruled the Earth for millions of years, leaving behind bones, footprints, and clues that still puzzle scientists today. Even with powerful tools and deep knowledge, there are many things we still don't fully understand about these ancient giants, from strange horns and feathers to vanishing tracks and sudden disappearances. The world of dinosaurs is filled with secrets. In this video, we'll explore 50 dinosaur mysteries that still leave experts scratching their heads. Before we begin this prehistoric journey, let us know where in the world you're watching from and what time it is for you now. Drop it in the comments below and settle in for a fascinating exploration. A long time ago, more than 240 million years in the past, strange, reptile-like creatures walked the Earth. These were the ancestors of the mighty dinosaurs. But where did these amazing animals actually come from? Did they all evolve from one early creature? Or were there many different kinds of animals that gave rise to the dinosaurs? To understand this mystery, we have to go back to a time before the dinosaurs ruled the world. This time is known as the Triassic period, which began around 252 million years ago. Earth looked very different back then. All the land was clumped together in one giant supercontinent called Pangaea, and the climate was hot and dry. Strange reptiles and early creatures lived in deserts and forests, but none of them were quite like the dinosaurs we know from books and museums. Scientists believe that dinosaurs first appeared in the middle of the Triassic period, around 243 to 231 million years ago. But the story of how they came to be starts with a group of animals known as archosaurs. The word archosaur means ruling reptile, and these creatures were the ancestors of not only dinosaurs, but also crocodiles and even birds. Among the archosaurs was a special group called dinosauromorphs, small, two-legged creatures that looked a bit like tiny dinosaurs. They had long legs, strong tails, and sharp teeth. They were fast runners, and they probably hunted insects and small animals. One of the earliest known dinosauromorphs is a creature called Lagopithecus, which lived about 235 million years ago. Even though it wasn't a true dinosaur, it shared many of the same features. As millions of years passed, some of these early dinosauromorphs evolved into the first real dinosaurs. One of the earliest true dinosaurs we know about is Nyasasaurus, which lived about 243 million years ago in what is now Africa. It had a long neck and a long tail, and it may have walked on two legs. Scientists still debate whether Nyasasaurus was truly a dinosaur or just a close relative, but it shows how early the dinosaur family may have started. Another very early dinosaur was Eoraptor, which lived around 231 million years ago in what is now South America. It was small, light, and probably a fast runner. The operator had sharp teeth for eating meat, but it might have also eaten plants, making it an omnivore. Its body shows traits found in both meat-eating and plant-eating dinosaurs, suggesting it could be close to the very root of the dinosaur family tree. Now the big question, did all dinosaurs come from one single ancestor, or did they come from different branches? Most scientists believe that dinosaurs evolved from a single common ancestor. This means that all types of dinosaurs, whether they were meat-eaters like Tyrannosaurus or plant-eaters like Triceratops, can trace their family line back to one early dinosaur that lived during the Triassic period. This idea is called monophily, and it means one family line. However, some experts have suggested that maybe different groups of dinosaurs could have evolved separately from more than one ancestor, a concept known as polyphily. But so far, most evidence supports the idea that dinosaurs came from one early ancestor, and over tens of millions of years, they split into different branches. Some became the huge, long-necked sauropods, others became sharp-clawed theropods, and still others became horned, armored, or duck-billed creatures. So, dinosaurs likely came from one small, early creature, a quick-footed dinosauromorph that lived more than 240 million years ago. From that single beginning, They evolved into the incredible variety of dinosaurs that roamed the Earth for more than 160 million years. And even today, they are not all gone because birds are considered by scientists to be living dinosaurs. Dinosaurs didn't just appear and slowly take over the world. They rose to power very quickly. In fact, once they arrived on the scene, they didn't waste any time. They spread across the land, evolved into many different shapes and sizes, and took over habitats once ruled by other animals. But how did this happen? Why were dinosaurs able to rise so fast and become the kings and queens of their time? Let's go back more than 230 million years ago, during a time known as the Triassic period. The world looked very different then. Most of the land was joined together in one giant continent called Pangaea, and the climate was hot and dry in many places. Life was recovering after the worst mass extinction the Earth had ever seen, a disaster that wiped out most species in the oceans and on land. At first, dinosaurs were not the only animals trying to take over. They had competition. Other reptiles called crurotarsans, relatives of today's crocodiles, were strong and widespread. Mammal-like creatures, amphibians and flying reptiles also lived alongside early dinosaurs. The world was full of competitors. One of the biggest reasons dinosaurs rose so fast was because they got lucky, at least from a survival point of view. Around 201 million years ago, near the end of the Triassic period, something dramatic happened. A mass extinction wiped out many of their biggest rivals, especially the crurotarsans. Scientists believe this event may have been caused by massive volcanic eruptions that poured out lava and gases, filling the skies with ash and carbon dioxide. The climate shifted wildly, making it hard for many species to survive. But the dinosaurs, for reasons we still don't fully understand, managed to survive this global chaos. And when the dust settled, many of the animals that used to compete with them were gone. The dinosaurs had a wide-open world to step into, and they took full advantage. Even before the extinction, dinosaurs already had some important traits that gave them an edge. Their legs were positioned directly under their bodies, like pillars, which helped them walk and run more efficiently. Most other reptiles sprawled out to the sides, like lizards today. That meant dinosaurs could move faster, use less energy, and possibly breathe more easily while running. Some dinosaurs may have also had lightweight skeletons, strong muscles, and air sacs in their bodies, which helped them stay cool and take in more oxygen. These features made them more active, more adaptable, and better prepared for change. Dinosaurs didn't just survive, they changed rapidly. Within just a few million years, they split into different groups: meat-eaters, theropods, long-necked plant-eaters, sauropodomorphs, and armored or beaked herbivores, ornithischians. This helped them fill many different roles in ecosystems. Some hunted, others grazed, some grew massive, others stayed small. They adapted quickly to different environments, from deserts to forests to coastlines. Their ability to evolve and change fast meant they could spread far and wide. Soon, they were found all over the world, from the cold polar regions to the steamy tropics. Because the continents were still mostly connected as one large landmass, Pangaea, dinosaurs could move across huge distances. If conditions were bad in one area, they could migrate to another. This made them less vulnerable to local disasters. Their footprints have been found on every continent, showing how far and fast they spread. It's easy to think dinosaurs took over just because they were stronger or smarter, but part of their success came from timing and opportunity. The sudden loss of their rivals, their unique body features, and the connected world they lived in all worked together to help them rise quickly. The dinosaurs were like runners in a race. Many started running at the same time. But when some of the others tripped or fell due to extinction, the dinosaurs didn't slow down. They sprinted ahead. And once they were in the lead, they didn't stop for a very long time, about 160 million years. Dinosaurs belong to a special group of reptiles that evolved in a very specific way. They didn't just appear suddenly. Around 240 million years ago, during a period called the Triassic, the Earth was full of all kinds of reptiles. Some walked, some crawled, some swam, and some flew. But out of all these different types, only a few followed the path that led to what we now call dinosaurs. One of the biggest differences has to do with how they stood and moved. Most reptiles, like lizards or crocodiles, have legs that stick out to the side. They move with a kind of waddle or crawl. But dinosaurs were different. Their legs were directly beneath their bodies, like the legs of a horse or an elephant. This upright stance allowed them to walk tall and run faster, using less energy. It's one of the key things that sets them apart. Here are some of the main things that scientists look for to decide if a creature is truly a dinosaur. Upright legs beneath the body. Dinosaurs had a unique hip structure. Their legs were positioned straight under their bodies, not sticking out like in most reptiles. This helped them stand tall and move more efficiently. They lived on land. Dinosaurs were land-dwelling animals. That means flying reptiles like pterosaurs and swimming reptiles like ichthyosaurs and plesiosaurs, even though they lived at the same time, are not considered true dinosaurs. Special features in the bones. Dinosaur bones have certain shapes and holes in specific places, like a hole in the hip socket. These might seem like small details, but they are part of what makes dinosaurs a unique group. They all came from a common ancestor. Dinosaurs weren't just a random mix of reptiles. They all descended from a shared ancestor that lived around 240 to 230 million years ago. Here's where it gets even more interesting. Some prehistoric animals looked like dinosaurs, but weren't. For example, Dimetrodon, a creature with a huge sail on its back, is often mistaken for a dinosaur. But it lived tens of millions of years before the first dinosaur even appeared. It's actually more closely related to mammals. Pterosaurs, the flying reptiles with long wingspans, lived during the same time as dinosaurs and are often shown flying above them. But they are not dinosaurs. They are a different branch of reptiles altogether. Marine reptiles, like Mosasaurus or Plesiosaurus, also lived alongside dinosaurs, but they swam in the oceans while dinosaurs stayed on land. That's one of the rules. Real dinosaurs never lived full-time in the sea. Another common mistake is thinking all dinosaurs were giant, scary, or powerful. But that's not true either. Some dinosaurs were smaller than a chicken, like the Microraptor, which had feathers and possibly glided from tree to tree. Others, like the Argentinosaurus, were more than 100 feet long and may have weighed as much as 100 tons. The dinosaur family was full of variety. Some were meat-eaters, others plant-eaters. Some walked on 2 legs, others on 4. Here's the twist. Dinosaurs are not all extinct. In fact, if you've ever seen a pigeon, a sparrow, or even an eagle, you've seen a dinosaur. Birds evolved from a group of small, feathered dinosaurs. That means, in a way, dinosaurs are still all around us, singing in trees and pecking at breadcrumbs in parks. Modern birds are the last surviving branch of the dinosaur family. Millions and millions of years ago, long before birds soared through the sky, feathers already existed. But back then, they didn't belong to birds. They were found on some of the earliest dinosaurs. These weren't the kind of feathers we see on chickens or parrots today. They were simpler, almost hair-like structures that grew on the skin of certain ancient reptiles. More than 150 million years ago, during the Jurassic period, Earth was a very different place then, hotter, wilder, and full of dinosaurs. Among them were small, fast-moving types like Compsognathus and Microraptor. Some of these dinosaurs were covered in fuzzy, soft feathers, but these feathers weren't made for flying, not yet. Instead, scientists think they served a different purpose at first. One of the most likely reasons feathers first evolved was warmth. Small dinosaurs, especially the ones that ran on 2 legs and were fast hunters, needed to keep their body temperature steady. Just like how mammals grow fur to stay warm, these early dinosaurs may have developed thin, fluffy feathers to trap heat close to their bodies. This would have helped them survive in colder nights or shady forests. In this way, feathers worked a lot like an ancient version of a jacket or blanket. We can still see this idea at work today. If you've ever seen a chick hatch from an egg, you'll notice it's covered in soft, downy feathers. These fluffy feathers help keep the chick warm. It's very likely that the earliest feathered dinosaurs had a similar covering, not for flying, but for insulation. But warmth wasn't the only reason feathers evolved. Some scientists believe feathers also became tools for display. As dinosaurs developed more complex feathers, longer, brighter, and more colorful, they might have used them to attract mates, scare rivals, or show strength. This is something we see clearly in modern birds today. Think of the bright tail of a peacock, which is used not for flying, but for showing off during mating season. Or consider the flashy crests and chest feathers of birds of paradise. These aren't for survival, they're for style. Even some fossils show feathered dinosaurs with long, decorative tail feathers that would have made flight difficult. This suggests that some feathers evolved not to help these creatures escape danger, but to stand out. Only later did feathers become useful for something else, movement through the air. After millions of years of evolving, some feathered dinosaurs developed long feathers on their arms and tails. These feathers helped them glide from tree to tree, much like flying squirrels do today. One famous example is Microraptor, a small dinosaur with feathers on its arms and legs. It likely lived in forests and used its feathered limbs like wings to jump and glide through the trees. Eventually, some dinosaurs took gliding a step further. Their feathers grew stronger and better shaped, their bones became lighter, their muscles changed. And before long, some of these dinosaurs had turned into the very first true birds. By around 150 million years ago, creatures like Archaeopteryx appeared. It had wings, flight feathers, and even claws on its hands. It was halfway between dinosaur and bird. So, how did feathers evolve? They didn't appear suddenly, and they weren't always flying. At first, they probably kept small dinosaurs warm. Then, over time, they became tools for attracting attention or scaring off enemies. Finally, they helped certain species glide and, later, fly. Today, every bird on Earth, from the tiniest hummingbird to the largest eagle, is a living relative of those feathered dinosaurs. When a bird flaps its wings or ruffles its feathers, it's using something that began as a fuzzy patch on a dinosaur more than 150 million years ago. Millions of years before humans ever walked the Earth, there were creatures so enormous that even the largest animals alive today seem tiny in comparison. Among these giants was a dinosaur called Argentinosaurus, one of the largest animals to ever live on land. This enormous plant-eater may have grown up to 120 feet long and weighed around 100 tons, which is more than 10 times the weight of a full-grown elephant. The dinosaurs ruled the Earth for a very long time, from about 245 million years ago until around 66 million years ago. This stretch of time is called the Mesozoic era, and it was divided into three parts: the Triassic, the Jurassic, and the Cretaceous periods. It was during the late Jurassic and Cretaceous periods that the largest dinosaurs appeared, especially the sauropods, long-necked, four-legged plant-eaters like Argentinosaurus, Brachiosaurus, and Dreadnoughtus. During the age of the dinosaurs, the world was much warmer than it is today. There were no polar ice caps, and the air was filled with more carbon dioxide, which helped plants grow quickly and in huge amounts. Giant ferns, towering trees, and thick forests covered much of the land, giving plant-eating dinosaurs a never-ending buffet of green food. With so much food available year-round, it was easier for certain dinosaurs to eat constantly and grow larger and larger. Being big had some serious benefits. A full-grown Argentinosaurus would have had very few enemies. Even the largest meat-eating dinosaurs would struggle to take down something so massive. Just like today's elephants are safe from most predators, giant sauropods were protected by their size. Their long necks also helped them reach food high in the trees, places where smaller dinosaurs couldn't eat. This meant they didn't have to compete with other animals for food, and they could munch away without worry. Sauropods had very special bodies that helped them grow so large. Their bones were light and full of air pockets, much like the bones of birds. This meant they weren't carrying around as much heavy weight as you might expect. A bone from an Argentinosaurus could be huge, but still fairly light. Also, their breathing system was different. They had air sacs in their bodies, which worked a bit like bellows, helping them take in lots of oxygen and cool their bodies. This helped them stay active and grow big without overheating. Unlike today's large animals, like elephants or whales, which give birth to live babies, dinosaurs laid eggs. This meant they could produce many babies at once, and those babies didn't have to stay with their parents for long. Even if only a few out of dozens of eggs survived, that was enough to keep the species going strong. Over time, some dinosaurs evolved to grow quickly and reach massive sizes to outlive the dangers of being small and vulnerable. You might wonder, wouldn't gravity crush such a big animal? Normally, yes. But sauropods had very thick pillar-like legs that could hold up their huge bodies, like strong columns holding up a tall building. Their wide feet helped spread their weight across the ground. Also, because they spent most of their time walking slowly and eating, they didn't need to move fast or jump like other animals, which made it easier to stay big and heavy. So, why were some dinosaurs so big? There wasn't just one reason. It was a mix of many things: a warm, lush planet full of food, safety from predators because of their size, special bodies with air-filled bones and strong lungs, egg-laying that allowed more babies to be born, strong legs and good balance for carrying weight. Together, these things made it possible for creatures like Argentinosaurus to become some of the largest animals the world has ever seen. Not all dinosaurs looked the same. Some had big, sharp teeth. Others had long necks, and quite a few had strange shapes on their heads, like tall crests, bony frills, or even giant horns. These features weren't just there by accident. They had a purpose, and scientists have spent many years trying to figure out exactly what that purpose was. Some dinosaurs had horns that looked very dangerous. Take Triceratops, for example. It had one short horn above its nose and two long, sharp ones above its eyes. These horns weren't just for decoration. They could have been used to fight. Imagine a large predator, like a Tyrannosaurus rex, attacking. Triceratops, which could grow up to 30 feet long and weigh up to 12 tons, could be charged with its horns, like a modern-day rhinoceros. Its frill, the large bony plate behind its head, might have protected its neck from bites. Other horned dinosaurs, like Styracosaurus, had even more spikes. One long horn on the nose and several sticking out of the frill like a crown of spears. It's hard to say for sure if these were purely for fighting, but it's clear they could be used to defend against attackers or maybe fight with other dinosaurs of the same kind. Some dinosaurs, like Parasaurolophus, had long, hollow crests that stretched behind their heads like pipes. At first, scientists weren't sure what these strange structures were for. They seemed too delicate to be used for fighting. Then, researchers discovered that these hollow crests might have acted like musical instruments. In the late 20th and early 21st centuries, scientists used computer models to blow air through 3D models of these crests. What they found was amazing. The sound they made was deep, loud, and haunting, like a low foghorn. It's possible that Parasaurolophus used these calls to communicate across long distances. The sounds might have helped members of a herd stay together, or helped males attract mates by showing off the size and sound of their crest. Some crests may also have helped dinosaurs recognize each other. If you were living in a time when huge herds of dinosaurs roamed open plains, it would be useful to spot your own kind quickly. A tall crest or a unique frill could have acted like a name tag or flag waving in the crowd. Just like peacocks today have giant, colorful tails and deer grow large antlers, some dinosaurs may have grown crests and horns to attract attention. Scientists call this sexual selection, and it means that some animals develop strange or beautiful features simply to impress others, especially during mating season. In some dinosaurs, the crests were big but fragile, with thin bones full of holes. That means they probably weren't used for fighting at all. Instead, they may have been bright in color and covered in skin, like a rooster's comb or a lizard's throat fan. These could have changed color, swelled up with blood, or stood tall when the dinosaur was showing off. Some scientists believe that males and females may have had different shaped crests. That would support the idea that they were used in displays to attract a mate, like a visual way of saying, "Pick me, I'm the strongest and most handsome." The truth is, there may not be just one answer. Dinosaur horns, crests, and frills could have done more than one job. A Pachycephalosaurus, with a thick, bumpy nose instead of a sharp horn, might have used its face for pushing and shoving like modern-day bison or muskoxen. At the same time, the shape of its frill might have told others what species it belonged to, or if it was a male or female. So perhaps horns were used in battle and in beauty contests. Crests might have helped dinosaurs make noise and get noticed. Just like animals today, dinosaurs were complex creatures with many needs: survival, communication, and reproduction. Evolution shaped their bodies in many clever ways to help them live in a tough world. The Stegosaurus is one of the most famous dinosaurs of all time. With its small head, powerful legs, and a tail tipped with deadly spikes, it already looked like something out of a fantasy story. But the thing that really made it stand out, the feature that made it unforgettable, was the row of big, flat, bony plates that rose up like sails along its back. These plates looked like giant stone leaves sticking out of its spine. Some were shaped like tall triangles, others were more rounded, but all of them made this dinosaur look like a walking fortress. At first glance, it's easy to think the plates were some kind of armor. After all, Stegosaurus lived in a dangerous world filled with meat-eating dinosaurs like Allosaurus, which could grow longer than 30 feet and had sharp teeth made for tearing flesh. Maybe those big plates helped protect the Stegosaurus from attacks. But when scientists looked more closely, they found that the plates were not very strong. They were actually quite thin and made of fragile bone covered in skin. They weren't shaped in a way that would block bites very well. Plus, the plates were not arranged like a solid wall. They stuck up in two staggered rows with gaps in between. So if a predator attacked from the side, it could easily bite between the plates. That made them poor shields. Still, even if the plates weren't great for defense, they might have helped in another way. Think of them like a dinosaur version of a warning sign. The Stegosaurus, with those tall plates towering over its back, would have looked big, strange, and maybe even dangerous. It might have used its appearance to scare off enemies by looking larger than it really was. Some scientists think the plates could have even turned red or dark in color if blood rushed into them, like how some lizards or birds puff up or change color to look more threatening. This could have made predators think twice before picking a fight. Another idea is that the plates were like a kind of natural air conditioner. This may sound odd, but let's look at how it might have worked. Inside the plates, scientists found lots of little grooves and holes where blood vessels would have gone. That means blood could flow through the plates just under the surface of the skin. If the Stegosaurus stood in a breeze or walked through a shady forest, the cooler air would pass over the surface of the plates and take away heat from the blood inside. Then the cool blood would flow back into the body and help lower the dinosaur's temperature. This would have been useful because big animals like the Stegosaurus, which could grow to over 30 feet long and weigh up to 5 tons, can overheat easily, especially during the Jurassic period around 150 million years ago, when the Earth was hotter and full of volcanoes and thick forests. So having a built-in cooling system might have helped the Stegosaurus survive the heat. Some scientists support this idea, but not everyone agrees. They point out that not all stegosaurs had the same kind of plates. Some had smaller plates, and others had spikes instead. If cooling down was the main reason for the plates, why would there be such big differences between species? That casts some doubt on the thermostat idea. Some scientists think the Stegosaurus used its plates the same way. The plates might have been brightly colored. They might have changed color during the mating season. They might have even wiggled or stood up straighter when the dinosaur got excited or wanted to show off. If males had bigger or fancier plates than females, that would support this idea. And it wasn't just about love. The plates might have also helped stegosaurs recognize each other from a distance. Sauropods were the largest land animals to ever walk the earth. These were the long-necked, long-tailed, plant-eating dinosaurs, like Brachiosaurus, Apatosaurus, and Diplodocus. They lived many millions of years ago, during a time that stretched from about 230 million years ago to around 66 million years ago. One of the most amazing things about sauropods was their necks. Some were as long as 40 feet, or about the length of a school bus. Let's start with the idea of holding the neck up high, like a giraffe. Some sauropods, like Brachiosaurus, had front legs that were longer than their back legs. Their bodies sloped upward toward the head. Their necks were built in a way that made it easier to raise them high. This makes scientists think that these sauropods probably used their necks to feed on tall trees, just like giraffes do today. Holding their heads high gave them access to leaves that other dinosaurs couldn't reach. This would have been a big advantage, especially in areas where food was hard to find close to the ground. Other sauropods, like Diplodocus, had very different body shapes. Their necks were very long and slim, and their heads were small. Their neck bones, called vertebrae, were shaped to allow lots of side-to-side motion, but not much up and down bending. These dinosaurs also had shorter front legs and longer back legs, which made their bodies slope downward. This makes many scientists believe they may have kept their necks low to the ground, sweeping them across large areas of land while feeding on low plants like ferns and horsetails. By keeping their heads low and moving their necks from side to side, they wouldn't have to move their huge bodies very much. They could just stand in one place and swing their necks around to eat, almost like a giant living lawnmower. Some people once thought that sauropods held their necks straight out, like the boom of a construction crane. This idea came from looking at how their neck bones fit together. If you lined up all the vertebrae based purely on their shapes and joints, it seemed like the neck could stretch out in a mostly horizontal line. But just because it could doesn't mean that it did. Today, most scientists believe that sauropods didn't keep their necks stiff and straight all the time. Instead, their necks were probably flexible and moved in different ways, depending on the need, like feeding, looking for danger, or talking to other dinosaurs. To figure out how sauropods held their neck, scientists look at many clues. Fossil bones tell us about neck length and shape. Computer models help show how the bones and muscles may have worked together. Modern animals like giraffes, ostriches, and crocodiles are also studied for comparison. Footprints and trackways can show how these giants moved and possibly how they fed. Even the smallest details, like the shape of the vertebrae or where muscles were attached, can give big hints. For example, if the neck vertebrae had big spaces for air sacs like birds do today, that would help lighten the neck, making it easier to lift or swing around without using too much energy. Were sauropod necks just too heavy to lift very high? Some early studies said the neck would need huge muscles and blood pressure to pump blood all the way up to the head, especially if the head was high above the heart. That led some scientists to think sauropods couldn't possibly raise their heads very far, but more recent research suggests that sauropods were built for this. Their bones were strong, but filled with air spaces, which made them lighter than they looked. Their hearts were likely very powerful, maybe the strongest in the animal kingdom at that time, and their necks weren't lifted all the way up all the time, just when needed. At first glance, the mighty Tyrannosaurus rex, one of the most fearsome meat-eating dinosaurs to ever walk the earth, looks like a creature designed for total domination. With its massive head full of banana-sized teeth and legs built for powerful movement, it's no wonder it has become the most famous dinosaur of all time. But there's one thing that always seems out of place: those tiny, almost comically short arms. When people look at a T-Rex, they often laugh or wonder, what's the point of those little arms? They seem way too small to match the rest of the dinosaur's enormous body, which could grow up to 40 feet long and weigh more than 9 tons. Some people even joke that T-Rex couldn't scratch its own chin or do a push-up. For many years, scientists thought T-Rex's arms were basically useless, just a leftover from its ancient ancestors. This idea made sense because its skull and jaws had taken over most of the work when it came to hunting and eating. With a bite strong enough to crush bone and a mouth that could tear apart flesh, who needed arms? But more recent research tells a different, much more interesting story. Those arms may have been short, but they were also very strong. Each arm was about 3 feet long, which is roughly the length of a human child. That might seem small next to a creature as big as a bus, but the muscles in those arms were thick and powerful. Scientists believe that each arm could lift over 400 pounds. That is more than the weight of 2 grown men. So, what could T-Rex actually do with these short but mighty limbs? Well, here are some possibilities scientists have considered. Some experts believe that the arms might have helped hold on to prey. Imagine a T-Rex using its strong arms to grab a struggling dinosaur while its huge teeth finished the job. Even if the arms couldn't reach very far, they may have added extra control during a deadly bite. Have you ever tried to get up from the ground without using your hands? It's tricky. Some scientists think the T-Rex might have used its arms to help push itself off the ground if it fell or lay down. With such a massive body, standing up again wouldn't be easy, and every bit of strength would help. Another theory is that the arms were used during mating, possibly to hold onto a partner. This idea comes from looking at how modern birds, which are distant relatives of dinosaurs, sometimes use their wings or limbs to balance during mating. Some studies show that the claws on T-Rex's arms were sharp, possibly used to slash or scratch enemies up close. Maybe the dinosaur didn't use its arms often, but when it did, it could do serious damage in a tight fight. If the arms were so useful, why did they stay small while the rest of the body grew so large? That's a question that still puzzles scientists. One idea is that as the head became bigger and more powerful, the arm simply became less important. Natural selection might have focused on developing stronger jaws and neck muscles instead. The arms didn't need to disappear entirely, but they didn't need to grow either. Another thought is that smaller arms were actually safer. A huge T-Rex biting and shaking its prey could accidentally injure its own arms if they were longer and in the way. So, having shorter limbs might have protected them from harm. T-Rex isn't the only dinosaur with short arms. Other large meat-eating dinosaurs, like Carnotaurus, also had extremely small arms, some even shorter than those of T-Rex. This pattern shows that tiny arms might have been common among giant predators. So maybe it was an advantage, not a weakness. Some dinosaurs had tails that were stiff like a board, while others had tails that could bend and move in many directions. This difference wasn't random. It happened for a reason. Just like animals today have different body parts to help them survive in their own way, dinosaurs also had tails that matched their lifestyles. Some needed strong, steady tails for balance. Others used their tails like weapons, and some may have used their tails to talk to each other without making a sound. Let's break it down and make it even more exciting and easier to understand. For many dinosaurs, especially the ones that walked on two legs, like the famous Tyrannosaurus rex or the speedy velociraptor, their tails acted like a counterweight. Think of a person walking across a narrow beam with their arms stretched out. The arms help them stay steady and balanced. Dinosaurs used their tails in a similar way. Dinosaurs that stood on two legs had heavy heads and strong upper bodies. Without something to balance them out, they would have toppled forward. So nature gave them long, stiff tails to keep them steady. These tails didn't wiggle much. The bones in them were often locked tightly together or held in place by thick tendons that had turned hard like bone. This kind of tail was not built for wiggling. It was built for keeping the dinosaur upright and moving smoothly, whether walking or running. Some dinosaurs didn't just walk with their tails, they fought with them. These were usually the plant-eating dinosaurs with big, powerful bodies and enemies to defend themselves against. Their tails became tools for survival, more like clubs or whips than just body parts. Take the Ankylosaurus, for example. This armored dinosaur, which lived around 66 million years ago, had a tail that ended in a huge, bony club. It could swing this tail like a medieval knight swinging a mace. If a predator like Tyrannosaurus rex got too close, one strong hit from the tail could break bones or even kill. The tail of an Ankylosaurus was stiff, but only near the end. That way it could deliver a powerful swing while still having enough control. Then there were the sauropods, the giants of the dinosaur world, like Diplodocus or Apatosaurus. Some scientists believe these long-necked, long-tailed dinosaurs may have used their whip-like tails for defense. Their tails were extremely long, sometimes over 45 feet, and could move fast, maybe even breaking the sound barrier like a cracking whip. If that's true, the noise alone could scare off a hungry predator, and a direct hit could leave a serious injury. While we usually think of tails as tools for movement or defense, some dinosaurs might have used their tails to communicate, but not in the way humans talk. Dinosaurs didn't have phones or voices like ours, but they could send messages with their bodies. Some dinosaurs had colorful, flexible tails that could move easily. These tails might have been lifted, waved, or flicked to send signals. A tail lifted high might have meant danger. A tail swaying slowly might have meant all is safe. Others could have used tail movements to attract mates during the mating season. There's even a theory that Stegosaurus may have raised and moved its tail to show off to others or warn them not to come too close. Though its tail also had sharp spikes, called a thagomizer, it's possible the dinosaur didn't always use them just for fighting. Sometimes just showing off a dangerous tail might have been enough to scare enemies away. When we look at the bones and fossilized skeletons of dinosaurs, we can learn a lot about how they walked, what they ate, how they defended themselves, and even how they may have cared for their young. But there is one question that is much harder to answer. How did dinosaurs mate? After all, dinosaurs didn't leave behind fossilized body parts. Still, using clues from their bones, modern animals, and a good amount of scientific detective work, paleontologists have come up with a few educated guesses. One of the most fascinating problems about dinosaur mating is simply their size. Some dinosaurs, like Argentinosaurus, could grow to be over 100 feet long and weigh more than 70 tons. That's heavier than 10 adult elephants stacked together. Others, like the Tyrannosaurus rex, had huge heads, massive tails, and legs built for power, not flexibility. Dinosaurs had long, powerful tails. Some tails were stiff and muscular, used for defense or balance, while others were more flexible. Either way, when it came to mating, those tails could easily get in the way. Scientists believe that dinosaurs likely lifted or curved their tails out of the way during mating. In many bird and reptile species today, both males and females use special movements to position their tails correctly. Dinosaurs may have done the same. In fact, fossils of dinosaurs with flexible tailbones and well-developed hip joints suggest that these animals were physically able to maneuver their bodies into the right position. In other words, nature had already prepared them for the tricky business of love. Dinosaurs, like modern birds and reptiles, probably had a cloaca. This is a single opening used for going to the toilet, laying eggs, and reproducing. Yes, just one opening for everything. In 2021, scientists found a rare fossil of a Psittacosaurus, a small beaked dinosaur that lived around 100 million years ago. What made this fossil special was that it had preserved the outline of a cloaca. Although the fossil didn't reveal all the inner workings, it showed that dinosaurs had an opening much like that of today's birds. In birds, during mating, the male and female press their cloacas together in what is sometimes called a cloacal kiss. It usually takes only a second or two. Some scientists think many dinosaurs may have mated this way, especially smaller ones. However, other researchers believe that some male dinosaurs had a penis, like many reptiles do today, especially those with longer mating sessions or those that needed to reach farther to transfer sperm. Because dinosaurs are closely related to both birds and crocodiles, scientists study these modern animals to better understand dinosaur mating behavior. When we think about dinosaur mating, we might wonder whether it was gentle and courtly or wild and rough. Again, scientists look at modern animals for clues. Some birds perform dances, sing songs, or display bright feathers to attract mates. Could dinosaurs with crests, frills, or colorful feathers have done the same? It's very likely. On the other hand, many reptiles today can be aggressive during mating. There are bite marks on some dinosaur fossils, especially around the neck or back. That might be the result of mating behavior, just like how modern lizards or crocodiles sometimes bite their mates to hold them still. After mating, the next big step was laying eggs. We have found many fossilized nests that show how some dinosaurs, especially plant eaters like Maiasaura, laid dozens of eggs at once and even stayed behind to protect them. When we consider dinosaurs and their eggs, it's easy to picture them as giant reptiles laying eggs in nests and then walking away. But the truth is much more fascinating. Scientists have spent many years digging up clues, literally, from fossilized nests, ancient eggs, and even fossilized baby dinosaurs to figure out how these long-extinct animals cared for their young. One of the biggest mysteries is how dinosaur eggs were incubated or kept warm enough to develop and hatch. Dinosaurs lived for over 160 million years, from around 230 million years ago to about 66 million years ago. That's a huge span of time. And during that period, dinosaurs came in many shapes, sizes, and lifestyles, from the towering Argentinosaurus, which could grow longer than a basketball court, to the feathery and fast velociraptor, no bigger than a large turkey. So, just like birds and reptiles today have different ways of caring for eggs, dinosaurs probably had more than one method too. Some dinosaurs, especially the older and more primitive ones, may have buried their eggs in the ground, just like many reptiles today, such as crocodiles and turtles. These animals dig holes in warm sand, soil, or rotting plants, lay their eggs, cover them up, and then leave them alone. The heat from the sun, or from decomposing leaves, helps keep the eggs warm. Fossil evidence from certain dinosaurs, such as the titanosaurs, the giant plant eaters, shows that they likely laid many small round eggs in shallow pits. These pits were then covered with vegetation or soil. As the leaves rotted, they gave off heat, just like a compost pile. This method is called environmental incubation because the warmth comes from nature, not from the parents. This style of nesting would have allowed the mother dinosaur to lay dozens of eggs at once and move on. For animals like titanosaurs, which may have laid as many as 40 to 50 eggs in one nest, it made sense to let nature do the work of keeping them warm. Later on in dinosaur history, some species seem to have developed more advanced and caring parenting styles. Fossils of small to medium-sized meat-eating dinosaurs, especially the ones with feathers, show a different approach. For example, the oviraptor, whose name means egg thief, although it was later proven innocent, was found fossilized sitting directly on a nest of eggs. Its arms were spread out protectively over the nest, almost like a modern bird. This incredible fossil discovery suggests that at least some dinosaurs didn't just bury their eggs and leave. They stayed and kept them warm with their own body heat. Scientists believe these dinosaurs may have had warm-blooded traits, and some may have had feathers that helped them hold in heat, like today's birds. These dinosaurs may have even turned their eggs regularly and guarded their nests from danger, just like penguins, chickens, or ostriches do today. The design of a dinosaur nest gives more clues. Some nests were carefully arranged in circles with the eggs pointing inwards, almost like a sunburst. This layout would make it easier for a dinosaur to sit in the center and cover all the eggs with its body. In other cases, the eggs were laid in rows or clumps, better suited for burying and letting the environment do the warming. Some nests were found in large colonies, with many dinosaurs laying their eggs close together. This kind of group nesting might have helped keep the nests warmer overall, or it might have given the parents safety in numbers, more eyes to spot hungry predators. So, when we ask, did dinosaurs sit on their eggs or bury them? The answer is both. Not all baby dinosaurs were helpless little creatures that needed their parents for everything. In fact, some dinosaur babies were surprisingly independent, able to walk, explore, and even find food all on their own, just days or even hours after hatching from their eggs. Some dinosaurs, especially the plant-eating ones, like the hadrosaurs, duck-billed dinosaurs, or certain types of sauropods, long-necked giants like Argentinosaurus, were born ready to move. Fossilized nests and tiny footprints show that these young ones could walk very shortly after hatching. That means they didn't need to stay in the nest, waiting for mom or dad to feed them. They could immediately begin their journey through the wild world. This kind of early independence is called being precocial. It's the same thing we see today in animals like baby ducks, antelopes, or horses, creatures that stand up and walk almost as soon as they're born. Precocial animals usually need to be able to move quickly to escape predators. In the dinosaur world, where giant meat-eaters like Tyrannosaurus rex were always lurking nearby, being able to run early in life could mean the difference between survival and being someone's lunch. Some baby dinosaurs didn't just start off independent, they also grew incredibly fast. Scientists have studied the bones of young dinosaurs and found growth rings, much like the rings in a tree. These rings show that in just a few short years, some dinosaurs could go from tiny hatchlings to towering adults. For example, a young Tyrannosaurus rex might have gained several hundred pounds every year. By the time it was just 10 or 12 years old, it was already a fearsome predator. That's lightning-fast growth for an animal that could eventually weigh around 9 tons. But why grow so fast? There are several reasons. First, in a world filled with giant predators, small animals were easy targets. So, the quicker a young dinosaur could grow in size, the better its chances of survival. Second, the faster they grew, the sooner they could start having babies of their own, helping their species survive. Not all dinosaurs grew or acted the same way as babies. Some, especially meat-eating species like Troodon or Oviraptor, seem to have been more like birds. These species might have had parents who stayed with the nest, protected the eggs, and even brought food to the young. In fact, scientists have found fossils of adult dinosaurs sitting on nests, just like birds do today. These dinosaurs probably had babies, meaning they were born helpless, with closed eyes, weak muscles, and a big need for care. So, while some dinosaurs were ready to go right away, others needed a lot of parenting. The reason for this difference might have to do with lifestyle, diet, and danger. A plant-eating baby that needed to move with the herd couldn't afford to stay in the nest. A baby predator, on the other hand, might do better staying safe and hidden while it learned to hunt. Even the size of the egg tells us something about how baby dinosaurs developed. Some eggs were packed with more nutrients, which gave the developing baby a better start. With more energy stored in the egg, the hatchling could be stronger and more capable when it emerged. In contrast, smaller eggs with less energy meant the babies might be born weaker and need more help. So, how a dinosaur egg was made could decide whether the baby inside would be born ready to sprint or born needing cuddles and care. Let's take a fascinating look at just how quickly some dinosaurs grew and what that tells us about their lives. When we hear the word dinosaur, we often imagine huge, slow-moving creatures that took ages to mature. But the truth is, many dinosaurs grew up very fast, much faster than most animals we know today. In fact, some of them reached full adult size in just a few short years. Imagine a baby dinosaur hatching out of an egg no bigger than a football. It's small, maybe the size of a chicken or a small cat, but then something amazing happens. That little hatchling doesn't stay tiny for long. It starts growing, and fast. Within just a few years, some of these dinosaurs would become taller than a house or heavier than a car. That's an incredible transformation in such a short time. Some of the biggest dinosaurs, like the sauropods, the long-necked giants, such as Apatosaurus or Argentinosaurus, grew from tiny babies to titans that weighed as much as 10 elephants. Fossil studies show that some of them may have grown as much as 2,000 kilograms per year. That means every year they were putting on weight equal to the mass of a small car. Scientists who study dinosaur bones have found growth rings in them, kind of like the rings inside tree trunks. These rings show how much the dinosaur grew each year. And when researchers looked at these rings, they were amazed. Dinosaurs like Tyrannosaurus rex grew from hatchlings into adults in around 15 to 20 years. That may sound like a long time, but not when you consider that a full-grown T-Rex could weigh more than 8,000 kilograms and be more than 12 meters long. Why would a dinosaur need to grow so fast? One reason is survival. A small dinosaur would be very vulnerable. It could be eaten by predators or pushed aside by larger animals, but once it grew big and strong, it had a much better chance of staying safe. Growing quickly helped young dinosaurs escape the danger zone of being small and weak. Also, in the ancient world of the dinosaurs, life was tough. Food could be scarce and predators were everywhere. The faster a dinosaur reached adult size, the sooner it could take care of itself, find food on its own, and even start having babies of its own. Some smaller meat-eating dinosaurs, like Velociraptor, may have reached adult size in only 2 to 4 years. That's about as fast as a large bird or a small mammal today. Imagine a creature the size of a turkey growing up into a fierce, fast predator in just a few birthdays. Not all dinosaurs grew at the same rate. Just like animals today, different types had different life strategies. The plant-eaters, especially the huge sauropods, seemed to grow the fastest. They had a lot of ground to cover and needed to reach massive sizes to keep up with their hungry diets and avoid being eaten. On the other hand, some smaller dinosaurs, or those that lived longer, may have taken their time. They may have grown more slowly, living a longer life and maturing later. But the general trend shows that dinosaurs grew far more quickly than the ancient reptiles that came before them, and in many cases even faster than modern reptiles like lizards or crocodiles. One of the most exciting things scientists discovered is that many dinosaurs, especially the ones most closely related to birds, had bird-like growth. Birds today grow very fast. A baby chick becomes a full-grown chicken in just a few months. And some scientists believe that many dinosaurs grew in a similar way. Very rapid early growth, then slowing down as they reached adulthood. When we think about dinosaurs, especially the mighty Tyrannosaurus rex, it's natural to wonder, how long did they live? Were they like elephants and tortoises, living for many decades? Or were their lives surprisingly short, maybe only 20 years or so? Scientists have been asking the same question, and thanks to fossil discoveries and clever science, we're beginning to understand the lifespans of these ancient giants. Bones are not just dead, dry things. In fact, bones, especially those of dinosaurs, can tell stories. Just like trees, some dinosaur bones have growth rings inside them. Each ring represents a year of life, kind of like the rings you see in a tree trunk when it is cut. By counting those rings, scientists can figure out how old the dinosaur was when it died. But there's a catch. Some bones don't preserve all the rings clearly, especially in older dinosaurs. Over time, the inside of their bones can change, or even erase the earliest rings. So scientists often look at many different bones from many individuals to get a clearer picture. One of the most famous dinosaurs of all time is the Tyrannosaurus rex, or T-Rex for short. This meat-eating giant could grow as long as 40 feet. That's about 12 meters and weighs as much as 9 tons. But for such a huge animal, you might be surprised to learn it didn't live as long as you might expect. By carefully studying T-Rex fossils, scientists believe that most of them lived up to around 28 or maybe 30 years at most. That's less than a human life today. But for a dinosaur that big, it's still impressive. What's even more amazing is how quickly they grew. Some young T-Rex dinosaurs gained as much as 1,700 pounds in a single year during their teenage growth spurt. So while the T-Rex didn't live for 70 or 80 years, like an elephant might, it packed a lot of growing and a lot of hunting into its shorter lifespan. Not all dinosaurs were like T-Rex, of course. Some of the smaller dinosaurs probably lived shorter lives, maybe only 10 to 20 years. Others, like the giant long-necked sauropods, think of Brachiosaurus or Diplodocus, may have lived much longer. Some scientists think these sauropods could live for at least 50 to 100 years, similar to modern-day turtles or whales. Their slower pace of life, huge bodies, and plant-eating habits might have helped them live longer, but we don't know for sure yet. Sauropod bones don't always preserve growth rings as clearly as meat-eaters like T-Rex. It's clear that dinosaurs had very different lifespans depending on their size, species, and how fast they grew. Some were like speedy athletes, growing fast, living intense lives, and dying young. Others were more like gentle giants, growing slowly and possibly living for many decades. Even though millions of years have passed since the last dinosaurs walked the earth, their bones are still giving us clues. With each fossil we discover, we get a little closer to understanding how long these amazing creatures lived and what their lives were really like. When people think of Tyrannosaurus rex, the famous king of the dinosaurs, they often picture a huge, terrifying creature chasing down prey with its massive jaws wide open. Tyrannosaurus rex, one of the biggest meat-eating dinosaurs that ever lived, grew up to about 40 feet long from nose to tail and could stand around 12 feet tall at the hips. It also weighed somewhere between 6 to 10 tons. That's as heavy as a full-grown elephant, or even heavier. Now imagine trying to run while carrying that much weight. It would not be easy. For a long time, scientists argued about whether such a big animal could actually run at all. Some thought T-Rex might have just walked slowly, like a hippo, using its size and strength to scare away other animals and steal their kills. Others believed it might have been quick on its feet, chasing after prey like a lion in full sprint. To figure out the truth, scientists looked closely at the T-Rex's leg bones. They studied the shape, size, and strength of its thigh bones and shin bones. They even used computers to model how its muscles might have worked. These studies told us something interesting. The legs of the T-Rex were strong and long, but not built for sprinting. Its heavy body would have made it very hard to run without risking serious injury. Think about it this way. If a 6-ton dinosaur tripped while running fast, the fall could be so hard that it might break its own bones. So instead of being a sprinter, T-Rex was probably more like a power walker. It likely moved at speeds of around 10 to 15 miles per hour. That may sound slow compared to a racehorse or a cheetah, but remember, T-Rex was huge. Even walking at that pace would have made it seem terrifyingly fast when charging at you with jaws full of 6-inch teeth. Not every dinosaur was fast. Many of the plant-eating dinosaurs that lived alongside T-Rex, like the duck-billed Edmontosaurus or the horned Triceratops, were also large and not very quick. If you're chasing something that only runs as fast as you do, you don't need to be a sprinter. You just need to be determined. There's also another idea. T-Rex may have been a scavenger at times. That means it might have eaten dead animals instead of chasing live ones, but many scientists today think it probably did both, hunting when it could and scavenging when the chance came. There's something else that makes the story even more interesting. Young T-Rex dinosaurs may have been much faster than the adults. When the T-Rex was still growing, it was lighter, had longer legs compared to its body, and could probably run much quicker. Some teenage T-Rex fossils show body shapes built more for speed than for strength. So, while the adults were slow and powerful, the teens might have been the swift, sneaky hunters of the family. Music. When people think about migration, they often picture flocks of birds flying across the sky, moving from cold places to warmer ones as the seasons change. But could ancient dinosaurs, those enormous earth-shaking creatures that lived millions of years ago, have done something similar? The idea might sound surprising, but scientists have actually found some very interesting clues buried deep in the rocks, fossils that hint at this behavior. And when we look closely, the evidence tells a story that stretches back more than 60 million years, possibly even 100 million years or more. Fossils are like pages in a history book written by nature. They preserve the bones, footprints, and even droppings of creatures that lived long ago. In some parts of the world, scientists have discovered trackways, long lines of fossilized dinosaur footprints that go on for miles. These footprints, all going in the same direction, suggest that a large group of dinosaurs may have been moving together, not just wandering, but possibly migrating, like a herd of animals with a purpose. For example, in places like Canada and the western United States, scientists have found the remains of duck-billed dinosaurs, creatures called hadrosaurs that appear in layers of rock that match different seasons. In the far north of what is now Alaska, fossil bones of these plant-eating dinosaurs have been found in areas that would have been cold and dark for long stretches of the year. So, how did they survive in such chilly, gloomy places? One theory is that they didn't stay there all year long. Instead, they might have migrated, just like modern caribou or birds, traveling hundreds of miles south during the freezing winter months and returning north when the weather warmed up. Some scientists believe that these hadrosaurs could have walked over 800 miles in a single seasonal journey. Why would dinosaurs go through the trouble of migrating? Just like today's animals, dinosaurs had needs. They needed to eat, drink, stay warm, and protect their young. During dry seasons, rivers might have dried up and plants could have withered. In colder months, food might have become hard to find. Migration would have helped them move to places where they could find enough food and water to survive. Some of the strongest evidence for dinosaur migration comes from fossilized bone beds, places where many dinosaur skeletons are found together. These massive graveyards might show where migrating herds were caught in floods, volcanic eruptions, or other disasters during their long journeys. It's like finding a frozen snapshot of an ancient road trip that ended in tragedy. Not all dinosaurs would have migrated. Many probably stayed in one place year-round, especially if they lived in parts of the world that had mild weather and plenty of food. The huge, long-necked sauropods, for example, may have roamed over large areas in search of plants, but they might not have followed strict seasonal routes. Also, some scientists believe that smaller dinosaurs with feathers, close relatives of birds, may have stayed put by developing other ways to survive the changing seasons, like growing extra feathers for warmth or hiding in burrows. The idea that some dinosaurs migrated makes sense when we remember that birds are actually living dinosaurs. Modern birds, from tiny sparrows to mighty geese, often fly thousands of miles every year to find better homes for different seasons. If birds, who evolved from small, feathered dinosaurs, do this today, it's not hard to imagine that their ancient cousins might have had similar instincts, even if they traveled on foot instead of wings. When we try to imagine what life was like for dinosaurs millions of years ago, one of the big questions scientists ask is, were dinosaurs mostly active during the day like humans, or during the night like owls and bats? It turns out that the answer is not so simple. Some dinosaurs were probably early risers that liked the sunlight, while others may have preferred the darkness of night. And the biggest clues about this come not from their bones or teeth, but from something even more delicate and surprising: the shape and structure of their eyes. Although we don't have soft tissues like eyeballs preserved in dinosaur fossils, we do have something incredibly helpful: eye sockets and sclerotic rings. These are the bones that surrounded the eyes and helped to support them. Many reptiles and birds today still have these structures, and they're also found in well-preserved dinosaur fossils. By studying the size and shape of these bones, scientists can make educated guesses about how good a dinosaur's vision was in bright or dim light. Some dinosaurs had small, narrow openings in their sclerotic rings. This suggests they had better vision during the daytime when the sun was bright. Their eyes were probably not well suited for seeing in the dark, but they were great at spotting prey or predators under the hot, open sky. These kinds of eye structures are called diurnal, which means active during the day. Plant-eating dinosaurs like Triceratops and some fast-moving predators like certain raptor species may have been diurnal. Being awake during the day helped them find food, travel long distances, and avoid danger in open spaces where light was needed to see clearly. Other dinosaurs had large, wide openings in their eye bones. These were likely better for seeing in low light, just like the wide eyes of owls or cats today. These dinosaurs were probably nocturnal, which means they were active during the night. For example, a small predator like Troodon had very large eyes compared to the size of its head. Fossil evidence of its sclerotic rings suggests it had amazing night vision. This allowed it to hunt in the dark, creeping silently through forests while the larger daytime dinosaurs were sleeping. It might have been similar to how a modern owl glides silently through the night, using sharp eyesight to find prey. Not all dinosaurs fit neatly into the day or night category. Some may have been crepuscular, which means they were active at different times, sometimes during the day, sometimes at night, depending on the season or their needs. These dinosaurs had medium-sized eye openings, somewhere between the narrow diurnal and wide nocturnal types. This pattern is actually seen in many modern animals too. For example, lions often hunt at night, but can also be active during early morning or late afternoon. Some dinosaurs may have behaved in the same way, especially if they lived in places where it got very hot during the day. In such environments, being active at dawn or dusk, what we call crepuscular behavior, might have been the most comfortable and safest choice. The variety of eye shapes and sizes among different dinosaurs shows us that they lived in a rich, complex world. They were not all doing the same things at the same time. Some dinosaurs might have been munching on ferns and plants as the sun rose, while others were stalking prey under the stars. This helped different species share the same environments without always running into each other. Interestingly, this method of studying eye bones isn't just used for dinosaurs. Scientists have also used it to study the vision of other extinct animals, like early mammals and flying reptiles called pterosaurs. Even birds, which are the modern descendants of dinosaurs, show a similar variety in their eye structures. Owls, for example, are nocturnal with big eyes, while hawks and eagles have eyes built for daytime hunting. Although not all dinosaurs were built for the water, there's growing evidence that some of them were quite good swimmers. Just like modern animals, dinosaurs came in all shapes and sizes. And just like we see today, where elephants can swim, birds can dive, and crocodiles glide through water, some dinosaurs may have been more at home in rivers, lakes, or even near oceans than we once thought. Fossil discoveries have given scientists hints about this watery side of dinosaur life. Some fossilized footprints show long, dragging toe marks, as if a dinosaur was wading or paddling through shallow water. In other cases, scientists have found skeletons in what used to be river or lake bottoms, suggesting these creatures might have spent a lot of time around water or even in it. One dinosaur in particular, called Spinosaurus, might have been a very good swimmer. This giant, which lived around 100 million years ago during the Cretaceous period, had a long, crocodile-like snout full of sharp, cone-shaped teeth. It also had strong, paddle-like legs and a large sail on its back. Many scientists now believe that Spinosaurus may have hunted fish and used its strong tail to propel itself through the water. Much like a modern-day crocodile, it was one of the few dinosaurs that may have lived more like an aquatic predator than a land hunter. Some other dinosaurs might not have lived in water full-time, but still could have swum when needed. For example, smaller, lighter dinosaurs with long legs may have been able to paddle or wade across rivers, especially if they were chasing prey or running from danger. Even the mighty Tyrannosaurus rex, which lived about 68 to 66 million years ago, might have been able to swim if it had to. Its powerful legs would have made it a strong paddler, even if its tiny arms didn't help much. Birds, which are living descendants of dinosaurs, give us more clues. Many birds today are excellent swimmers, ducks, penguins, and puffins, for example. So it's possible that some of their dinosaur ancestors had similar abilities. Swimming could have been very useful for dinosaurs. If they needed to migrate, escape a predator, or search for food, crossing rivers or lakes would be an advantage. Just like some modern animals, they might have used their ability to swim to reach new areas, survive harsh environments, or hunt different types of prey. Of course, not every dinosaur was a swimmer. Some, especially the giant, heavy ones like Argentinosaurus, which could grow over 100 feet long and weigh as much as 100 tons, were probably too large and heavy to swim easily. Trying to float or paddle might have been impossible for them. These giants likely stuck to dry land. Others may have avoided water altogether, especially if their bodies were not suited for it. Dinosaurs with very short limbs, bulky bodies, or poor balance would have struggled in water. So could dinosaurs swim? Yes, at least some of them could, and some may have been quite skilled at it. Fossil evidence, body shapes, and comparisons to modern animals all point to the idea that water wasn't always off limits for dinosaurs. Some were probably excellent waders and paddlers, while a few, like Spinosaurus, may have ruled the rivers like ancient crocodile kings. Dinosaurs were more than just land-dwelling monsters. They were a diverse and adaptable group of animals. And their world, more than 65 million years ago, was full of rivers, lakes, swamps, and seas. And in that watery world, at least a few dinosaurs knew how to swim. Just like animals today, dinosaurs had many different ways of finding food and staying safe. Some hunted together in groups, while others preferred to sneak up on their prey alone. Some were strong fighters, while others were better at running away or hiding. Let's dive into the fascinating ways these ancient creatures hunted and protected themselves. Some dinosaurs may have been social animals, just like wolves or lions today. They might have hunted in groups, using teamwork to take down larger or faster prey. This behavior is called pack hunting, and scientists believe that certain species showed signs of it. One good example is Deinonychus, a fast, sharp-clawed predator that lived around 115 million years ago. Fossil evidence shows that several Deinonychus bones have been found near the bones of a much larger plant-eating dinosaur called Tenontosaurus. This has led some scientists to think that Deinonychus may have hunted in groups to bring down prey much bigger than any one of them could handle alone. Another dinosaur, the famous Velociraptor, which lived about 75 million years ago, is also sometimes imagined as a pack hunter, though some experts argue that it might have hunted alone. Still, the idea of clever, fast raptors hunting together has captured people's imaginations ever since the movie Jurassic Park. Not all dinosaurs needed a team to get the job done. Some were likely ambush predators, meaning they waited silently, hidden in bushes or forests, and then pounced on their prey when the moment was right. These dinosaurs relied more on stealth and speed than on teamwork. A dinosaur like Tyrannosaurus rex, which lived around 68 to 66 million years ago, may not have hunted in packs. Instead, it may have used its powerful legs to charge forward at high speed and its huge jaws to deliver a deadly bite. Even though its tiny arms looked a bit silly, its head and teeth were enormous weapons. Some scientists believe that T-Rex could have hunted alone by sneaking up on weaker or slower dinosaurs and using surprise to win. It may also have been a scavenger at times, eating animals that were already dead. Of course, not every dinosaur was a hunter. In fact, most dinosaurs were herbivores, meaning they ate only plants, but that doesn't mean they were easy targets. These plant-eating giants had their own ways to stay safe. Some dinosaurs had thick skin, bony plates, or even clubbed tails. One great example is Ankylosaurus, which lived about 66 million years ago. It had heavy armor all over its body and a massive bone club at the end of its tail. If a predator got too close, this dinosaur could swing its tail like a hammer and break bones. Another armored dinosaur, Stegosaurus, had sharp plates along its back and 4 deadly spikes on its tail. These spikes could be used to jab or slash at attackers. Other dinosaurs had to rely on running. Small, fast dinosaurs, like Ornithomimus, which looked a bit like a modern ostrich, could sprint quickly and escape danger. Some had long legs, strong muscles, and sharp eyes to spot danger early and run for their lives. Plant-eating dinosaurs often moved in herds, like elephants or bison do today. Staying in a group gave them extra protection, their safety in numbers. A predator might not dare to attack if dozens of huge dinosaurs stood together. Some young dinosaurs may have stayed in the center of the herd, while the adults formed a protective circle around them. Fossil footprints found in many places show that some dinosaurs traveled in groups. When people think of dinosaurs, they often picture huge, powerful creatures stomping across the land with sharp teeth, long tails, or thick armor. But one important question many scientists have tried to answer is this: how smart were dinosaurs? Were they clever problem solvers, or did they just follow their instincts like modern reptiles? The truth is, it depends on the dinosaur, because some had big brains, while others had very tiny ones. First, we need to understand what scientists mean when they talk about intelligence. For animals, intelligence is often measured by how big their brain is compared to their body size. This is called the encephalization quotient, or EQ. It helps scientists figure out if an animal could think, learn, or solve problems. For example, humans have very high EQs. We have big brains for our body size. Many mammals and birds also have relatively large brains, but reptiles usually have smaller brains compared to their size. And many dinosaurs were somewhere in between. Some dinosaurs, especially the ones that were related to birds, had fairly large brains for their size. One example is the small but smart dinosaur Troodon, pronounced Troodon. Troodon lived around 75 million years ago, and its brain was quite large for a dinosaur. In fact, some scientists believe that Troodon had one of the highest EQs of any dinosaur. It had keen eyesight, sharp hearing, and it may have been a fast learner. Other bird-like dinosaurs, like Velociraptor and Oviraptor, also had larger brains than average and showed signs of more complex behavior. For example, some of them may have cared for their young, built nests or used tools, though evidence for tool use is still unclear. On the other hand, many of the huge plant-eating dinosaurs, like Apatosaurus, Brachiosaurus, and Diplodocus, had enormous bodies but very small brains. These giant dinosaurs lived during the Jurassic period, around 150 million years ago, and could grow as long as 25 meters. That's over 80 feet. But their brains were tiny, sometimes no bigger than a banana or even a hot dog. When it comes to meat-eating dinosaurs like Tyrannosaurus rex, things get more interesting. T-Rex had a fairly large brain for its size, much bigger than most of the plant-eaters. Its brain wasn't as big as Troodon's compared to body size, but it was well developed, especially in parts that controlled smell and sight. T-Rex had huge olfactory bulbs, which means it could smell extremely well. This helped it track prey or find dead animals from far away. It also had excellent vision, maybe even better than a modern eagle. These abilities suggest that T-Rex was a clever hunter, or at least very aware of its surroundings. It likely used its brain to plan attacks, or perhaps even learn from experience. Other predators, like Allosaurus or Spinosaurus, had smaller brains than T-Rex, but still may have been more intelligent than the giant plant-eaters they hunted. Modern birds are the closest living relatives of dinosaurs. In fact, birds are dinosaurs. They're just the last surviving group. Some scientists believe that the smartest dinosaurs were the ones that were most like birds, small, fast, and with good senses. These dinosaurs may have been able to communicate, solve problems, and even pass on knowledge to their young. Studies of fossilized skulls using CT scans have helped scientists see the brain cavities of dinosaurs. These scans show that some of them had well-developed brains, especially in parts that deal with vision, movement, and coordination, just like birds today. Music. Even though we cannot hear them today, many scientists believe that dinosaurs probably did communicate through sounds, through body movements, and maybe even through color displays or scents. Most people imagine dinosaurs letting out loud, scary roars, like in movies. But the truth might be a little different. The Tyrannosaurus rex, which lived about 66 million years ago, may not have roared like a lion. Instead, scientists believe it might have made low, deep sounds, more like the rumble of an alligator or the booming calls of some birds. Modern birds and reptiles like crocodiles, lizards, and parrots are the closest living relatives of dinosaurs. And many of these animals are actually very noisy. Crocodiles hiss, bellow, and grunt. Birds chirp, squawk, and sing songs to find mates or defend their territory. So it makes sense to believe that dinosaurs may have also made noises to talk to each other. Dinosaurs probably used their mouths, throats, and even noses to create sounds. Some may have had air sacs inside their bodies, similar to birds today. These air sacs could have helped them make loud, echoing calls, especially in the case of large plant-eaters, like the Parasaurolophus. This strange-looking dinosaur had a long, curved tube on the top of its head, which scientists call a crest. Inside this crest were long, hollow passages that could have acted like a musical horn or trumpet. When air passed through it, it might have made deep, haunting sounds that could be heard from far away. These sounds may have been used to call out to others, warn of danger, or attract mates. Fossils of Parasaurolophus are over 75 million years old, so this kind of dinosaur may have been using sound for communication a very long time ago. Not all communication has to be loud. Dinosaurs may have also spoken through body movements, just like many animals today. Think of birds that fluff up their feathers to show off, or dogs that wag their tails or growl to warn others. Dinosaurs with horns, frills, or colorful crests, like Triceratops or Corythosaurus, might have used those body parts for silent messages. They could have moved their heads or waved their tails to show anger, challenge rivals, or signal to members of their herd. Even the mighty tail of a Stegosaurus, which lived about 150 million years ago, may have done more than fight. When swung or raised in a certain way, it could have sent signals to others in the group, like saying, "Follow me, stay back," or "Watch out." Some dinosaurs might have used the ground itself to communicate, just like elephants today can send low rumbles that shake the earth. Perhaps large dinosaurs, especially the long-necked ones, like Brachiosaurus or Diplodocus, could have stomped their feet or used low-frequency sounds to send messages that could be felt rather than heard. Different dinosaurs had different strengths. Some could smell incredibly well, others had sharp eyesight, and a few probably had very good hearing. Their senses helped them survive, find food, avoid danger, and maybe even talk to each other in ways we still don't fully understand. Many dinosaurs had a powerful sense of smell. In fact, some of them may have smelled even better than most animals alive today. This was especially true for meat-eating dinosaurs, like Tyrannosaurus rex. Scientists have studied the shape of their skulls and found a large part of the brain was dedicated to processing smells. That part of the brain is called the olfactory bulb, and in Tyrannosaurus rex, it was huge. This suggests that this dinosaur could sniff out prey from very far away. It may have even smelled dead animals from miles off, like vultures do today. Even plant-eating dinosaurs may have had good noses to help them find the right plants to eat or to smell predators before they got too close. What about sight? Well, some dinosaurs likely had very good vision, especially the ones that hunted or flew. Dinosaurs that were related to modern birds like the raptor family, which includes velociraptors, had forward-facing eyes, which means they had binocular vision. This helps with judging distance, which is great for hunting and catching fast-moving prey. Flying dinosaurs, like the early bird Archaeopteryx, needed sharp eyes to see where they were going and spot food on the ground. Their eyes were large compared to the size of their heads, which usually means they could see very well. Also, some plant-eating dinosaurs might have had wide-set eyes, giving them a broad field of view that would help them see predators coming from the side or behind. Now let's talk about hearing. This sense may not have been as flashy as sight or smell, but it was still important. Some dinosaurs had long, thin inner ear canals, which suggest they could hear low-frequency sounds. These deep sounds can travel a long way, which might have helped them communicate over great distances. Imagine a huge sauropod, like a Apatosaurus, sending out a deep, rumbling call that could be heard by another herd miles away. Small, fast dinosaurs may have had better high-pitched hearing, so they could quickly detect danger or the squeaks of their own kind. Paleontologists believe that hearing in dinosaurs was probably better in some species than in others. For example, theropods, the meat-eaters, seem to have had more sensitive ears than large, slow-moving plant-eaters. Tyrannosaurus rex, who lived about 68 to 66 million years ago, had a fantastic sense of smell, good eyesight, and pretty good hearing, a triple threat. Raptors, who lived around 75 million years ago, likely had great vision and hearing, perfect for hunting in packs. Giant plant-eaters like Brachiosaurus, who walked the earth about 150 million years ago, may have used smell and hearing to detect predators before it was too late. Flying dinosaurs or early birds probably had sharp vision, just like hawks and eagles today. Even though dinosaurs lived a very long time ago, more than 65 million years ago, we can still look for clues in the fossils they left behind, and also study their closest living relatives. And guess what? Birds and crocodiles are the dinosaurs' closest relatives alive today. By looking at how birds and crocodiles behave, scientists can make smart guesses about how dinosaurs may have felt and acted. Before we go further, let's understand what emotions are. Emotions are the feelings inside us, like happiness, sadness, fear, anger, love, and excitement. Humans show emotions by smiling, crying, laughing, or yelling. Animals show emotions in other ways, wagging tails, fluffing feathers, making sounds, or cuddling with others. Not all animals have emotions like humans, but many do show signs of basic feelings. A dog may wag its tail when happy or growl when angry. Birds sing when they feel safe or relaxed. Even elephants have been seen mourning the loss of a friend. So, if animals today can feel and show emotions, could dinosaurs do it too? One strong clue that dinosaurs may have felt emotions is the way some of them took care of their babies. Fossils of certain dinosaurs, like Maiasaura, whose name means good mother lizard, show nests filled with baby bones and eggs. The adult bones nearby suggest that the mother stayed with her young and protected them after they hatched. That's not just an instinct. It might also mean the dinosaur had some kind of emotional connection with her babies. Today, birds, descendants of dinosaurs, build nests, warm their eggs, and feed their chicks. Crocodiles are known to carry their young in their mouths to protect them. If these living animals can show such care, their ancient cousins might have too. And showing care means feeling something, even if it's not the same as human love. Imagine a small dinosaur, maybe the size of a turkey, hiding in the bushes while a huge predator like Tyrannosaurus Rex stomps past. Would that little dinosaur feel fear? Most likely, yes. Fear is a survival emotion. It helps animals escape danger. Scientists believe that dinosaurs had brains that were advanced enough to process basic emotions, like fear and excitement. Some studies of dinosaur brain shapes, based on fossilized skulls, suggest that certain parts of their brains were similar to parts of modern animals' brains that handle emotions. This doesn't prove they had feelings, but it makes it more likely. Excitement is another basic emotion. If a pack of velociraptors hunted together and brought down prey, they may have felt something like triumph or energy, just like wolves do after a hunt. Young dinosaurs may even have played together, just like young birds and crocodiles do. Play is often a sign of happiness and curiosity. Many dinosaurs, especially plant-eating ones, like Triceratops or Apatosaurus, lived in herds. Living in groups usually means animals form bonds and learn to communicate with each other. Elephants, zebras, and birds all show emotions like grief, happiness, and affection within their groups. Could dinosaur herds have shown the same feelings? Some fossil evidence shows that dinosaurs may have walked in groups with their young, suggesting they looked out for one another. That kind of teamwork may mean they felt comfort, loyalty, or even sadness when a group member died. Anger is a powerful emotion, and even modern reptiles like crocodiles can show something similar when threatened. If a dinosaur was defending its nest or fighting over territory, it might have felt a surge of emotion. Maybe not anger exactly like a human feels, but something close. This emotional energy may have helped them fight harder and protect what mattered to them. When we think about dinosaurs, we often imagine them as giant roaring creatures fighting for survival in a wild and dangerous world. But were they just fierce and selfish animals? Or did some of them actually show care and love for their babies? This is one of the most fascinating questions scientists have asked about dinosaurs. Did they care for their young? To answer this, scientists have looked very closely at dinosaur fossils, especially the fossils of nests, eggs, and even baby dinosaurs. What they have discovered is truly amazing. Some types of dinosaurs may have been much more like birds than like cold and uncaring reptiles. One of the first clues came in the year 1978, when a team of paleontologists digging in Montana in the United States found a remarkable group of fossils. They discovered a fossilized nest of a dinosaur called Maiasaura, which means good mother lizard. Inside the nest were broken eggshells and bones of baby dinosaurs that were still growing. These babies were not ready to walk or hunt on their own. They had to stay in the nest and probably needed their parents to bring them food and protect them. This showed that at least some dinosaurs might have taken care of their babies after they hatched. Other fossils from the same site showed many nests close together. This suggests that Maiasaura dinosaurs lived in groups and built their nests near each other, like seabirds do today. It's possible that entire colonies of dinosaurs helped watch over and protect each other's young. This kind of behavior is called social parenting, and it's something we see in some modern birds. In another case, fossils of a meat-eating dinosaur called Oviraptor were found sitting right on top of their eggs, just like how birds sit on their eggs to keep them warm. At first, scientists thought this dinosaur was trying to steal the eggs, which is why they gave it the name Oviraptor, meaning egg thief. But later, they realized the dinosaur wasn't stealing the eggs. It was actually protecting and caring for its own. That changed the way scientists thought about dinosaur parenting forever. In the year 2015, researchers also found fossils of Protoceratops, a small horned dinosaur from Mongolia, that showed groups of young dinosaurs huddled together. These young dinosaurs were still very small and likely not ready to leave the nest. That means they probably stayed with their parents for some time after they hatched, just like baby birds or mammals today. Not all dinosaurs may have been caring parents, though. Some species probably laid their eggs and left them alone, hoping that some babies would survive. This kind of strategy is common in reptiles today, like turtles or crocodiles. But even crocodiles, which are reptiles, often guard their nests and help their babies get to water. So it's possible that many more dinosaurs showed some kind of parental care than we once thought. We also know that dinosaurs and birds are closely related. In fact, most scientists today agree that birds are a type of living dinosaur. Since almost all birds today care deeply for their chicks, feeding them, warming them, and teaching them, this connection gives us more reason to believe that some dinosaurs did the same. Dinosaurs ruled the earth for a very, very long time, more than 160 million years. That is much longer than humans have been around. Over all those millions of years, many different kinds of dinosaurs lived, changed, and disappeared. Some were as small as chickens, while others were longer than a basketball court. But how many types of dinosaurs were there altogether? Before we count them, we have to understand what types means. Are we talking about species, which are the most specific group, or are we talking about larger groups like families or orders? For now, let's focus on species, which are like the individual kinds of dinosaurs. A species is a group of animals that are close enough to mate and have babies together. For example, the Tyrannosaurus rex is one species and Triceratops is another. Even though they both lived in the late Cretaceous period, they were very different from each other. As of now, scientists have named more than 1,000 different species of dinosaurs. That number keeps growing almost every year. Fossils are still being discovered in places like China, Argentina, the United States, and even Antarctica. But here's something exciting. Experts believe that there may have been more than 2,500 to 3,000 dinosaur species in total, or maybe even more. The Earth is big, and fossils don't always survive. Many bones may have rotted away, been destroyed by weather, or are still buried deep underground, waiting to be found. Some paleontologists, these are scientists who study ancient life, think that we might only know about a small piece of the full dinosaur story. Imagine trying to guess a whole puzzle when you only have a few pieces. Dinosaurs came in many shapes and sizes. They're usually grouped into two main orders: Cercia. This group includes the big meat-eating theropods like Tyrannosaurus rex, Velociraptor, and Allosaurus, as well as the long-necked plant-eating sauropods like Brachiosaurus and Diplodocus. ornithischia. This group includes plant-eaters like Triceratops, Stegosaurus, Ankylosaurus, and the duck-billed Edmontosaurus. Within these two main groups, there are many families, each with several species. So, the number of types grows quickly. Dinosaurs lived all over the planet, from dry deserts to wet forests, from swamps to polar regions. They adapted to many different environments. That's one big reason why there were so many types. Some were fast runners, others slow walkers. Some had horns or spikes, others had feathers or crests. Each type had its own way of surviving. Also remember that dinosaurs lived across three major time periods. The Triassic period, which began around 250 million years ago, the Jurassic period, which began around 200 million years ago, and the Cretaceous period, which ended about 66 million years ago with the Great Extinction. In each of these time periods, new types of dinosaurs appeared, while older ones faded away. It's almost like there were several different worlds of dinosaurs over time. It might surprise you to know that on average, scientists discover about 50 new dinosaur species every year. That's nearly one new dinosaur per week. Sometimes the new species are discovered in well-known fossil sites, and other times they're found in brand new places. Every discovery gives us more clues about how many types of dinosaurs there really were. Some of the newest discoveries include strange and fascinating creatures with feathers, long claws, or unusual head shapes, showing just how diverse dinosaurs were. So while we don't have a final number, we can say for sure there were hundreds, maybe thousands, of different dinosaurs, each with its own story, appearance, and way of life. The Earth was once truly the domain of giants, hunters, grazers, and strange creatures unlike anything we see today. Some creatures that scientists once thought were different species of dinosaurs may have actually been the same dinosaur at different ages. This idea has changed the way experts look at fossils, especially when it comes to size, shape, and bone structure. Let's imagine you find the skeleton of a small dinosaur with a round head, short horns, and a thin frill at the back of its skull. A few years later, you discover another skeleton that's much bigger, with long horns, a wide frill, and a completely different head shape. At first glance, you might think these are two totally different dinosaurs, but what if they are actually the same kind of dinosaur, just at different ages? This has happened before. In the early days of dinosaur discovery, during the late 1800s and early 1900s, many fossils were found and named quickly. Back then, paleontologists, scientists who study ancient life, often didn't know whether a fossil came from a young dinosaur or an adult. So, if a baby dinosaur looked very different from a grown-up one, they sometimes gave it a brand new name, thinking it was a whole new species. But as more fossils have been found and studied, scientists have realized that dinosaur bodies could change a lot as they grew. Some young dinosaurs had short snouts, big eyes, and small horns. As they aged, their skulls stretched out. Their horns grew longer or changed shape, and their bodies became larger and more muscular. This kind of dramatic change is called ontogeny, which is just a fancy word for how a creature changes as it grows up. One famous example of this confusion involves Pachycephalosaurus, which means thick-headed lizard. Adult Pachycephalosaurus had large, dome-shaped skulls, but smaller fossils with flatter skulls were once thought to be different dinosaurs, like Dracorex, Dragon King, or Stygimoloch, demon of the river Styx. Now, many scientists believe that Dracorex and Stygimoloch were actually young Pachycephalosaurus dinosaurs that just had not developed their thick, round skulls yet. Another famous case is Triceratops, the well-known three-horned dinosaur. Some experts used to think that Torosaurus, which had a longer and more open frill at the back of the skull, was a separate species. But now, some believe that Torosaurus might just be an older version of Triceratops. As the Triceratops aged, its frill may have grown larger and changed shape, giving it the look of a different animal. So what caused all this confusion? One big reason is that baby dinosaurs and adult dinosaurs often lived in different ways. Baby dinosaurs might have had softer bodies and moved in groups for safety. Adults, on the other hand, were often bigger and stronger, with more tools like horns or sharp beaks for defense or hunting. Because of this, the bones of young dinosaurs looked very different from those of adults, even if they were the same species. To solve these mysteries, paleontologists now use special tools. They slice thin pieces of bone and study them under microscopes. This lets them count growth rings, just like counting the rings of a tree. These rings tell scientists how old the dinosaur was when it died and whether its bones were still growing or had stopped. What if some dinosaurs had a secret weapon, venom? Just like certain snakes, lizards, and even a few mammals today, could some dinosaurs have used venom to hunt, defend themselves, or kill their prey more easily? This idea may sound like something out of a science fiction movie, but scientists have found real clues in ancient fossils that hint at the possibility. While we don't have a dinosaur perfectly preserved with venom dripping from its fangs, we do have some fossils that raise interesting questions and open up our imaginations. One of the biggest clues about venom in dinosaurs comes from a small, feathered dinosaur called Sinornithosaurus. This creature lived about 125 million years ago during a time called the Early Cretaceous period. It wasn't huge like a T-Rex. Instead, it was only about the size of a large chicken or a small turkey. When scientists studied the fossilized skull of Sinornithosaurus, they noticed something very unusual. It had long, grooved teeth in the upper jaw, and those grooves looked very similar to the venom-delivering teeth of some modern snakes and lizards. In animals today, these grooves help venom flow from a gland and into the wound when the animal bites. Could Sinornithosaurus have used its teeth the same way? Some researchers believe so. They suggest that Sinornithosaurus might have had venom glands hidden in its mouth, which dripped venom down those grooved teeth and into its prey. If that's true, this little dinosaur might have used venom to help paralyze small animals like birds, lizards, or even other dinosaurs. The venom wouldn't necessarily kill right away. It might just make it harder for the prey to escape, making hunting easier for this feathered predator. Using venom would give some dinosaurs a big advantage. Not all dinosaurs were big or fast. Smaller hunters, especially those that needed to sneak up on their food, could use venom as a way to weaken their prey without needing brute strength. Imagine a dinosaur that bites a bird-like creature, and instead of needing to chase it down after a long struggle, the bite quickly slows the animal down. The dinosaur could then safely eat it without a fight. It's a very smart and efficient way to hunt. Also, venom could help protect a dinosaur from attackers. If another animal tried to fight or eat a venomous dinosaur, one bite could make the attacker think twice. This kind of defense might have helped smaller dinosaurs survive in a world filled with danger. While the fossil of Sinornithosaurus gave us an exciting clue, not all scientists are convinced. Some experts believe the grooves in its teeth were just part of its natural shape and not actually meant for venom. They argue that grooved teeth can appear in animals that do not have venom too. Also, no clear fossil evidence of venom glands has ever been found in any dinosaur fossil, at least not yet. Others say that if dinosaurs did have venom, we would expect to see more signs of it in other fossils, not just in one or two. So, for now, the idea remains a fascinating theory, but not a proven fact. Even though there is no final proof, the thought of venomous dinosaurs opens up many exciting possibilities. Picture a small dinosaur hiding in the trees, silently waiting to leap down on its prey. It bites once, the venom starts to work, and the prey becomes slow and dizzy. That would have been a deadly and clever way to hunt. Even though scientists have found the fossil bones of hundreds of different dinosaurs, there is a strong chance that many more are still waiting to be uncovered. The Earth is a huge place, and the remains of dinosaurs are often buried deep underground, hidden in thick forests, deserts, mountains, or even under the ocean floor. Some may lie in places no one has ever searched, while others might be hidden in plain sight, just waiting for the right person to come along and recognize what they truly are. Paleontologists, those are the scientists who study ancient life through fossils, have officially named and described more than 1,000 species of dinosaurs. These creatures lived in all shapes and sizes. Some were as small as chickens, while others were longer than a school bus and heavier than a herd of elephants. But experts believe we've only uncovered a small piece of the full dinosaur puzzle. Some scientists estimate that there may have been more than 10,000 different species of dinosaurs that once walked, flew, or swam across the Earth. If that's true, that means we may have discovered less than one in every 10 of them so far. There are several reasons why so many dinosaurs are still missing from our fossil record. Not every dinosaur that died became a fossil. In fact, fossilization is a very rare and special process. When a dinosaur died, its body usually rotted or was eaten. But if the bones were quickly buried by mud, sand, or ash, they had a better chance of becoming fossils. Even then, millions of years of weather, earthquakes, and erosion could destroy the fossils or bury them so deeply that they're nearly impossible to find. There are many parts of the world where digging for dinosaur fossils is very difficult. Some places are covered by thick jungles, frozen in ice, or filled with deep oceans. Political conflicts or lack of funding can also prevent scientists from searching certain regions. Who knows what mysteries lie hidden in the rocks of Central Africa, remote parts of South America, or under the sands of the Middle East? Sometimes, fossils sit in museum storage rooms for years before anyone realizes how special they are. In the past, bones were often labeled incorrectly or even thought to belong to dragons or giants. As science improves, paleontologists can now use advanced tools like CT scanners and chemical tests to learn more from even tiny bone fragments. A dusty old fossil could suddenly reveal a brand new species. New dinosaurs are still being discovered every year. In fact, since the early 2000s, scientists have been naming over 40 new dinosaur species each year. That's about one every week. In the year 2021, a huge meat-eating dinosaur called Lukalkan was discovered in Uzbekistan. In 2022, a strange, long-necked dinosaur named Meraxes gigas was unearthed in Argentina. These recent discoveries show that the age of dinosaurs still has many secrets to reveal. Some of the undiscovered dinosaurs might be unlike anything we've ever seen. There might be horned dinosaurs even stranger than Triceratops, armored dinosaurs tougher than Ankylosaurus, or flying reptiles with wingspans wider than a small airplane. We might even find more tiny, feathered dinosaurs that help connect the dots between ancient reptiles and modern birds. Dinosaurs were much more than just bones. They had soft parts too, things like tongues, brains, muscles, hearts, intestines, and skin. These soft tissue parts made up a large portion of their bodies. However, the sad truth is that we almost never find these parts preserved in the fossil record. Soft parts of an animal, like the tongue, stomach, or eyeballs, are made from materials that easily rot or break down after death. Once a dinosaur died, its body would start to decay very quickly. Bacteria, insects, and scavengers, like ancient crocodiles or giant insects, would feed on the soft tissues first. After just a few days or weeks, the soft parts would be gone, leaving mostly the hard parts behind, like bones, teeth, and sometimes claws. So, while the bones could stick around for millions of years and turn into stone, the soft parts usually vanished long before fossilization even had a chance to begin. To become a fossil, a dead animal needs to be buried quickly, often by mud, sand, or volcanic ash. This protects the remains from being eaten or destroyed. Over thousands and then millions of years, minerals from the soil slowly replace the original bones, turning them into rock. But soft tissues don't hold up well under this process. They break down fast and are rarely buried quickly enough to avoid destruction. That's why we usually find only the skeletons and not things like the skin, heart, or muscles. Still, there have been some incredible discoveries that give us glimpses into the soft side of dinosaurs. For example, in the early 2000s, around the year 2005, scientists studying a fossil of a Tyrannosaurus rex from about 68 million years ago made a shocking discovery inside a leg bone. They found what looked like stretchy, soft tissue, almost like blood vessels. It was so unexpected that many people doubted it at first, but further tests showed that this might really be preserved soft tissue, possibly even containing ancient proteins. In other rare cases, scientists have discovered fossilized dinosaur skin impressions. These aren't actual skin, but natural molds left in the mud that later hardened into rock. They show us that some dinosaurs had bumpy, scaly skin, like modern reptiles. Even more exciting, some feathered dinosaurs from China, like Sinosauropteryx, were found with delicate feathers preserved in fine volcanic ash. That told us that not all dinosaurs were scaly, some were fluffy. If we had more soft tissue fossils, we could learn so much more about how dinosaurs lived. We could understand how their muscles were arranged, how they moved their tongues or blinked their eyes, what their organs looked like, and how their hearts worked. With skin impressions, we might know what colors they were, or whether they had patterns like stripes or spots, just like modern animals. In some super rare cases, tiny bits of pigment have been found in fossil feathers, helping scientists guess what colors some dinosaurs might have been. Imagine seeing a reddish-orange dinosaur with stripes, or a dark feathered one with shiny blue-green shades. Even though soft tissue fossils are extremely rare, scientists are getting better at finding and studying them. New tools like high-powered microscopes and scanning machines help us look inside fossils without breaking them open. Chemical tests can sometimes detect tiny traces of proteins or cells. And who knows, in the years to come, maybe even more amazing discoveries will be made. The question, exactly when did dinosaurs become birds, is one of the biggest puzzles in the history of life on Earth. It's like asking when a caterpillar becomes a butterfly. Is it when the wings appear, or when it can fly, or when it stops crawling and starts fluttering? In the same way, there was no single moment when a dinosaur suddenly turned into a bird. It was a slow, step-by-step change that took place over millions of years. To understand this transformation, we need to go back in time, way back to a period called the Jurassic period, which started around 200 million years ago and ended about 145 million years ago. This is when some small, feathered dinosaurs began to appear. These creatures were not quite birds yet, but they had features that made them different from their bigger, scaly relatives. One of the most famous of these ancient creatures is called Archaeopteryx. Say it like this: Archaeopteryx. Archaeopteryx lived about 150 million years ago, during the late Jurassic period. It had wings and feathers like a bird, but it also had teeth, claws on its wings, and a long, bony tail, features you would expect in a dinosaur, not a modern bird. In many ways, it was a mix of both worlds, a true missing link between dinosaurs and birds. But Archaeopteryx was not the first feathered dinosaur, and it certainly wasn't the only one. In the past few decades, scientists have discovered many fossils in places like China, showing that feathers were surprisingly common among small, meat-eating dinosaurs known as theropods. These include famous predators like Velociraptor, which lived about 75 million years ago, and even Tyrannosaurus rex, which lived around 66 million years ago. Although T-Rex was way too big to fly, some of its relatives had fuzzy feathers or even wings, suggesting that feathers first appeared not for flying, but for other purposes, like keeping warm, attracting mates, or even scaring enemies. So, when did those dinosaurs actually become birds? The answer depends on how we define a bird. If we say a bird is an animal that has feathers, lays eggs, and can fly, then there were already bird-like dinosaurs tens of millions of years before Archaeopteryx. But if we define a bird as something that looks and acts like the birds we see today, like robins, crows, and pigeons, then that transformation likely didn't fully happen until about 65 million years ago, after the great extinction that wiped out most dinosaurs. That extinction happened around the end of the Cretaceous period, which ended about 66 million years ago. Most dinosaurs disappeared during this time, probably because of a giant asteroid hitting the Earth, but not all of them vanished. A small group of feathered, flying dinosaurs survived. These survivors became the ancestors of all modern birds. In fact, every bird alive today, from the tiniest hummingbird to the largest ostrich, is a direct descendant of those lucky dinosaurs who made it through the disaster. Dinosaurs didn't disappear, they evolved, and birds are living proof of that. Every time you see a pigeon on the street, a chicken in a farmyard, or a hawk in the sky, you're looking at a modern-day dinosaur. Around 200 million years ago, small theropod dinosaurs began to appear. Around 150 million years ago, Archaeopteryx lived with both dinosaur and bird traits. Between 130 to 70 million years ago, many feathered dinosaurs evolved. Some began gliding and maybe even flying. Around 66 million years ago, mass extinction wiped out most dinosaurs. Small, flying ones survived. Today, over 10,000 species of birds exist, all descended from those tiny feathered dinosaurs. Looking back in time, about 150 million years ago, to a period called the Late Jurassic, that's when a small dinosaur named Archaeopteryx lived. This creature is one of the most famous feathered dinosaurs of all. Archaeopteryx looked a bit like a bird with wings and feathers, but it also had traits that showed it was still very much a dinosaur. Things like sharp teeth, clawed fingers on its wings, and a long, bony tail. Archaeopteryx is important because it was the first strong clue that birds might have evolved from dinosaurs. And today, scientists no longer say some dinosaurs had feathers just as a possibility. They are now sure that many theropod dinosaurs, the group that includes meat-eaters like Velociraptor and Tyrannosaurus rex, had feathers or feather-like coverings. But wait, not all feathered dinosaurs could fly. That's a really important thing to understand. Feathers didn't begin as tools for flying. They might have first appeared to keep dinosaurs warm, like how fur keeps mammals warm. Later, feathers may have helped with display, like attracting mates or scaring enemies. Only later did feathers evolve into tools for gliding or flying in the ancestors of modern birds. Some examples of other feathered dinosaurs include Velociraptor. This famous dinosaur, made popular by movies, probably had feathers. It was about the size of a turkey, not the giant lizard shown on screen, and scientists have found fossil evidence of quill knobs on its arm bones, just like the places where feathers attach on birds today. Microraptor, this dinosaur had feathers not only on its arms, but also on its legs and tail. It likely used its four wings to glide from tree to tree like a flying squirrel. Eutyrannus, a much bigger dinosaur related to Tyrannosaurus rex, was also covered in a thick layer of fuzzy feathers. Eutyrannus lived about 125 million years ago and was about the size of a bus. Its name means feathered tyrant, and it shows that even large meat-eaters may have been fluffy. Sinosauropteryx, one of the earliest dinosaurs found with clear fossil impressions of simple, hair-like feathers. These weren't pretty flight feathers, but more like soft fuzz, yet still important because they show that feathers came very early in dinosaur history. Scientists believe that feathers might have first appeared even earlier than we thought, maybe even more than 160 million years ago, in some small two-legged ancestors of birds. And here's the really exciting part. If you look at a pigeon or a chicken today, you're actually looking at a living dinosaur. That's because birds are dinosaurs. They're the only group of dinosaurs that survived the great extinction that happened around 66 million years ago. And maybe even Tyrannosaurus rex chicks had feathers when they were young, although adults may have lost them as they grew big. Feathers were not just for birds. They were part of the dinosaur world long before birds took flight. These discoveries have completely changed how we picture dinosaurs. Not as dull, cold-blooded beasts, but as vibrant, sometimes fluffy, sometimes colorful creatures. Some may have looked more like giant killer turkeys than lizards. Some dinosaurs could actually fly, but not all of them. In fact, only a small group of dinosaurs had the special body parts needed for true flight. These flying dinosaurs were not like the giant meat-eating ones we often see in movies. Instead, they were usually small, light and covered in feathers, and their closest living relatives are the birds we see today. Flying dinosaurs didn't look like airplanes with scales. They looked more like birds with claws and teeth. One of the most famous examples is Archaeopteryx. Say it like Archaeopteryx. This creature lived about 150 million years ago, during a time called the Late Jurassic period. Archaeopteryx was about the size of a modern crow or raven. It had feathers and wings like a bird, but also had teeth in its beak, claws on its wings, and a long, bony tail, things modern birds don't have. It could likely flap its wings and glide through the air, although scientists still debate how good it was at flying. Before true flying dinosaurs appeared, some of their relatives may have started out by gliding. Think of how a flying squirrel jumps from tree to tree. It doesn't flap its arms, but it uses skin flaps to glide through the air. Some feathered dinosaurs, like Microraptor, may have done something similar. Microraptor was about the size of a pigeon and lived around 120 million years ago. What made it special was that it had feathers on all four limbs, not just its arms, but also its legs. It may have used those feathered limbs to glide from branch to branch in forests, helping it escape predators or sneak up on prey. It's important to know that pterosaurs, the flying reptiles with huge wingspans, were not actually dinosaurs. They lived at the same time, and some were giants with wings as wide as a small airplane, but they belonged to a different group of reptiles. Pterosaurs appeared even earlier than flying dinosaurs and were the first true vertebrates, animals with backbones, to fly. Interestingly, feathers didn't first evolve for flight. Many land dinosaurs had feathers, even ones that didn't fly. These feathers might have been used to keep them warm, to show off to other dinosaurs, or to help baby dinosaurs stay cozy in their nests. Over millions of years, some dinosaurs developed larger, stronger feathers and lighter bones, which made flight possible. Today, scientists agree that birds are actually modern dinosaurs. They are the last surviving branch of a group called theropods, which also included famous meat-eaters like Velociraptor and Tyrannosaurus rex. This means that when you look at a sparrow, an eagle, or even a chicken, you're actually looking at the living descendants of dinosaurs that once ruled the Earth. Birds first appeared around 150 million years ago, and they have been flying ever since. Even after the mass extinction event about 66 million years ago, which wiped out most dinosaurs, birds survived and continued to evolve. Many people are surprised to learn that some dinosaurs may have made sounds very different from the loud, earth-shaking roars we often hear in movies. In fact, instead of roaring like lions or growling like crocodiles, certain dinosaurs might have chirped, cooed, or even sung like birds. This idea may seem strange at first, but it actually makes a lot of sense when we look at how closely some dinosaurs were related to birds. Over the past few decades, paleontologists, scientists who study ancient life, have discovered many fossils that show strong links between birds and certain types of dinosaurs, especially the group called theropods. Theropods were mostly meat-eating dinosaurs that walked on two legs. Famous members of this group include Velociraptor and Tyrannosaurus rex. But not all theropods were gigantic hunters. Some were small, lightweight, and even had feathers. These feathered dinosaurs are now thought to be the ancestors of modern birds. Because birds are the only living descendants of dinosaurs, scientists study them carefully to guess how their dinosaur ancestors might have behaved. One of the biggest clues comes from the way birds make sounds. Birds do not use vocal cords like mammals do. Instead, they produce sound with a special organ called a syrinx, which sits at the base of their windpipe. The syrinx is extremely efficient and can make complex, beautiful sounds, everything from whistles and trills to chirps and long, melodious songs. For a long time, scientists thought that dinosaurs probably lacked a syrinx, and that meant they couldn't make bird-like sounds. But in the year 2016, researchers discovered something amazing. The fossilized remains of a syrinx from an ancient bird called Vegavis eai, which lived more than 66 million years ago, during the late Cretaceous period, right alongside many non-avian dinosaurs. This was the first fossil syrinx, and it proved that at least some ancient creatures had the ability to produce complex vocal sounds. However, it's important to understand that Vegavis was already very bird-like, so scientists still don't know whether more distant dinosaurs, like Tyrannosaurus rex, had a syrinx too. In fact, studies of dinosaur fossils have so far failed to find clear evidence of a syrinx in non-bird dinosaurs. This suggests that most of them may have made simpler sounds, if they made any sounds at all. Still, that doesn't mean dinosaurs were silent. Some researchers believe that certain dinosaurs might have made deep, booming sounds by using their bodies in other ways. For example, just like modern-day crocodiles and ostriches, they could have used air sacs in their throats or chests to produce low-frequency sounds. These sounds might have been more like low hums, rumbles, or even deep hoots, things you might feel more than hear. Such noises would have been useful for communicating over long distances or through thick forests. In fact, the size and shape of a dinosaur's skull or chest cavity can give clues about the kinds of sounds it might have made. Some fossils show hollow crests or unusual nose shapes that could have worked like musical instruments. Take Parasaurolophus, for example, a duck-billed dinosaur with a long, curved crest on its head. Scientists believe this crest was hollow and may have acted like a trumpet, allowing it to make loud, deep calls. Computer models have even been used to simulate what those calls may have sounded like, something between a foghorn and a deep bellow. While we don't have a complete picture yet, the idea that some dinosaurs chirped, cooed, or even sang isn't as far-fetched as it once seemed. Some likely made deep, booming calls. Others might have hissed, grunted, or clicked. A few could have used sound-making crests or feathers. And perhaps the most bird-like of all, those close to the origin of birds, may have truly sung. Around 66 million years ago, a massive disaster changed life on Earth forever. This event, known as the Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction, wiped out almost all the dinosaurs, along with many other kinds of animals and plants. But somehow, one small group of feathered creatures, the ancestors of modern birds, managed to survive. The big question is, why did only birds make it through when so many others did not? About 66 million years ago, a giant asteroid, larger than Mount Everest, crashed into what is now the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. The impact released more energy than 1 billion atomic bombs. Fires swept across continents. The skies darkened with ash and smoke for months, maybe even years. Sunlight barely reached the ground. The temperature dropped sharply, plants died, and food chains started falling apart. Creatures that were once strong and dominant, like Tyrannosaurus rex or Triceratops, suddenly found themselves in a world they couldn't survive in. But somehow, a few small feathered creatures made it through. It may surprise you to learn that birds are actually a type of dinosaur. Yes, modern birds are living dinosaurs. Long before the mass extinction, some species of small feathered dinosaurs had already started to evolve into early birds. These early birds had wings, lightweight skeletons, sharp eyesight, and brains that were a bit larger compared to their body size. Many of them could fly or at least glide through the air. So when the asteroid struck, not all dinosaurs disappeared. Those small, bird-like ones, especially the ones that became today's birds, somehow survived and kept on living through the chaos. Scientists believe that several key features helped birds make it through the extinction. Many of the surviving bird species were small, often no bigger than a pigeon or a chicken. Being small meant they needed less food, which was incredibly important in a time when food became very scarce. Large animals starved quickly, but small ones had a better chance of finding enough to eat. Flight gave birds a huge advantage. They could escape danger more easily, move to safer places, and search for food over large areas. Even if forests burned down or rivers dried up, flying birds could travel far away to find shelter or resources. Birds are warm-blooded, meaning they can keep their bodies warm even when the environment turns cold. Their feathers acted like blankets, helping them stay alive during the colder, darker months after the asteroid impact. This was a big advantage compared to cold-blooded reptiles, which relied on the sun to stay active. Birds lay eggs, and their babies grow fast. When we look at dinosaur fossils in museums today, they are usually grey, brown, or some shade of stone. But that's not what dinosaurs looked like when they were alive. The truth is, we don't know exactly what colors they were. Fossils tell us a lot about bones and shapes, but colors are a different story. Most of the time, the actual colors of ancient creatures are lost during the fossilization process. Yet thanks to some amazing discoveries in recent years, scientists have found a few clues, small hints, locked in the ancient remains that are slowly helping us paint a clearer picture. For a long time, scientists believed it was impossible to know what colors dinosaurs had. This is because skin, feathers, and soft body parts rarely get preserved. These parts usually rot away before fossilization can even begin. But in the last 2 decades, especially starting in the early years of the 21st century, paleontologists began discovering some extraordinary fossils that still had tiny structures known as melanosomes. Melanosomes are microscopic packets of pigment, the same kind of pigments that give color to hair, feathers, and skin in animals today. Different shapes of melanosomes create different colors. For example, long and skinny melanosomes are usually linked to black or gray colors, while rounder ones are often tied to reddish or brownish hues. One of the most exciting breakthroughs happened in the year 2010. Scientists studied a small feathered dinosaur called Anchiornis, which lived about 150 million years ago during the late Jurassic period. Its fossil had such well-preserved feathers that researchers could actually see the melanosomes under a powerful microscope. By comparing the melanosomes to those in modern birds, they were able to figure out its likely color pattern. Anchiornis probably had black and white feathers like a magpie with a bright reddish crest on its head, something like a mohawk made of color. Another well-preserved fossil came from a dinosaur called Sinosauropteryx, discovered in China. This dinosaur was small and covered in simple feather-like structures. The fossil revealed that it had bands of reddish and white coloring along its tail, kind of like a striped raccoon. These discoveries tell us that at least some dinosaurs, especially the smaller ones with feathers, had bright and complex color patterns. Some might have been used for display, like showing off to a mate, or for camouflage, helping them blend into their surroundings. Others might have been warnings to predators, like the bright colors we see on poisonous frogs today. But what about the bigger dinosaurs, the ones without feathers like Triceratops, Stegosaurus, or Tyrannosaurus rex. Unfortunately, scientists haven't found enough preserved soft tissue or pigment structures in these dinosaurs to say for sure what colors they were. So, for now, their colors remain a mystery. They might have had dull skin, like modern elephants or rhinos. Or maybe they had bolder patterns, like tigers or snakes. It's also possible that some of them had patches of bright color around their eyes or on their crests to attract mates or scare enemies. Even with modern technology, figuring out a dinosaur's color is a very tricky task. But as more fossils are uncovered and more advanced scanning tools are developed, we may get even closer to knowing the truth. Scientists are also looking at fossilized skin impressions, studying fossil chemistry, and using comparisons with birds and reptiles alive today to build better guesses. So what colors were dinosaurs? Were they black, white, red, or brown? Some had stripes or spots. Some had crests that might have glowed with color. But for most of them, we still don't know. And that adds to the mystery and wonder of these incredible creatures from so long ago. Dinosaurs were some of the most incredible creatures to ever walk the earth. And just like all living things, they had to eat to stay alive. But eating is only part of the story. Once they swallowed their food, how did their bodies break it down and turn it into energy? The answer to that question depends on the type of dinosaur we're talking about, because meat eaters and plant eaters likely had very different ways of digesting their meals. And since dinosaurs came in all shapes and sizes, from chicken-sized raptors to house-sized giants, their digestive systems also came in a wide variety. Some dinosaurs, like the enormous sauropods, think of long-necked giants such as Apatosaurus or Brachiosaurus, were herbivores, which means they ate only plants. Now, plants are much tougher to digest than meat. Leaves, ferns, pine needles, and even tree bark can be hard to break down, especially when they're filled with a substance called cellulose, which most animals cannot digest easily. To deal with this, many plant-eating dinosaurs evolved special ways to help break down tough plant material. But here's the tricky part. Most of these giant dinosaurs didn't chew their food the way cows or goats do today. Their teeth were more like rakes or chisels, used to snip off plant parts and swallow them whole. So how did they digest food without proper chewing? The answer may lie in something called a gastrolith. This is a smooth stone that some dinosaurs swallowed on purpose. The stones would sit inside a special part of the dinosaur's stomach, where they would grind up the food just like a natural food processor. Scientists have found these stones alongside fossils of plant-eating dinosaurs, suggesting that many of them use this clever trick to help with digestion. In addition to gastroliths, these dinosaurs likely had very long intestines and multiple stomach chambers, just like modern cows or birds, such as ostriches. This gave them plenty of time and space to slowly break down and absorb all the nutrients from their leafy meals. On the other hand, meat-eating dinosaurs, called theropods, had different needs. These included fearsome predators like Tyrannosaurus rex and Velociraptor. They didn't need to grind up tough plants. Instead, their sharp, serrated teeth were built for slicing through flesh and bone. They could tear meat off a prey animal and swallow huge chunks of it. Since meat is easier to digest than plants, their digestive systems didn't need to be as long or complicated. But that doesn't mean they were simple. These predators likely had powerful stomach acids, strong enough to break down not just meat, but even some bones. Just like modern crocodiles and birds of prey, theropods may have digested most of what they ate and passed very little waste. Some scientists believe that theropods, especially smaller ones, had crop-like organs, similar to the storage pouches in birds, where food could be held temporarily before digestion began. This would allow them to eat quickly and then digest their meals safely later, possibly while hiding from other predators. Even though dinosaurs are gone, their closest living relatives, birds and crocodiles, can help us understand how dinosaur digestion worked. Birds are actually the modern descendants of small theropod dinosaurs. Crocodiles, on the other hand, are more distant cousins, but still part of the same large group of reptiles. In the early part of the dinosaur age, around 230 million years ago, the Earth looked very different. There were no grassy fields or flowers like we see today. Instead, the land was filled with ancient plants like ferns, horsetails, cycads, and conifer trees. Those are trees like pines, redwoods, and cedars that have cones and needle-like leaves. Ferns were everywhere. These leafy, low-growing plants didn't have flowers or seeds. Instead, they used tiny spores to grow more ferns. Horsetails looked like tall, green straws with bristly tops, and they often grew near water. Cycads were short, palm-like plants with thick trunks and stiff leaves. They were very common in dinosaur times and might have been a favorite snack for some species. Conifers were some of the tallest plants around, and they made thick forests where dinosaurs could wander and feed. Dinosaurs like Apatosaurus or Diplodocus, with their long necks, could reach up into the trees to pull down needles and branches. Different dinosaurs had different mouths and teeth, depending on what kind of plants they liked to eat. Dinosaurs such as Triceratops had sharp beaks and strong teeth for slicing through tough, fibrous plants. Others, like Stegosaurus, had small peg-like teeth that may have been used for chewing soft plants like ferns. Some of the biggest dinosaurs, like Brachiosaurus, which could grow over 70 feet long, had extremely long necks that helped them reach the tops of tall trees. Scientists think these giants may have swallowed their food without chewing much at all, letting their huge bellies break down the food over time. Smaller plant-eating dinosaurs, like Hypsilophodon, may have fed on low-growing plants, nibbling ferns and tender shoots close to the ground. About 140 million years ago, a big change happened. Flowering plants, called angiosperms, began to appear. These were plants that had flowers, fruits, and seeds, and they spread quickly across the earth. Some of the earliest flowering plants were small, bushy plants with simple blossoms. Over time, this group grew to include plants like magnolias, water lilies, and even ancient versions of fruit trees. Dinosaurs that lived during the later part of the Cretaceous period, like Hadrosaurus, also known as the duck-billed dinosaur, likely ate these new plants. Fossilized stomach contents and fossilized dinosaur droppings, called coprolites, have shown bits of flowering plant material inside. This tells us that some dinosaurs adapted their diets to include these new and tasty plants. The kinds of plants that dinosaurs ate changed from period to period. Triassic period, about 230 million to 201 million years ago, dinosaurs probably ate ferns, cycads, and horsetails. Jurassic period, about 201 million to 145 million years ago, conifer forests were thick and tall. Plant eaters flourished. Cretaceous period, about 145 million to 66 million years ago, flowering plants spread widely, adding color and variety to the diets of many dinosaurs. By the end of the Cretaceous, many kinds of plants existed that would look familiar to us today. But not long after that, around 66 million years ago, a massive asteroid impact caused the mass extinction that wiped out most dinosaurs and many plant species too. Sometimes when scientists look closely at dinosaur fossils, they see unusual marks on the bones, strange bumps, holes, swelling, or twisted shapes. These marks can be signs that the dinosaur was injured or had a disease. For example, some fossils show signs of broken bones that later healed, just like how a human might recover from a broken arm. In other cases, the bones show signs of infection. One fossil of a large meat-eating dinosaur, possibly an Allosaurus, had round holes in its jawbone, which may have been caused by a terrible bacterial infection. Other dinosaurs had bones that seemed to be damaged by arthritis, a disease that makes joints stiff and painful. Just like old people today can have sore knees or backs, some old dinosaurs may have limped through their final years. There is even fossil evidence that some dinosaurs may have had cancer. In one case, a fossil from a horned dinosaur called Centrosaurus had a growth on its leg bone that scientists believe was a type of bone cancer. This shows that serious diseases, like the ones we fear today, have been around for a very long time, far before humans existed. Figuring out what kind of disease a dinosaur had is not easy at all. It is like trying to solve a mystery using only part of the puzzle. Scientists cannot take blood tests or use X-rays like doctors do today. They only have fossilized bones, which are sometimes damaged or incomplete. Also, many diseases affect soft body parts, like the skin, lungs, or stomach, and these soft tissues almost never turn into fossils. That makes it even harder to tell what was going on inside the dinosaur's body. Because of that, most of the diseases we know about are the ones that leave marks on bones, like infections, arthritis, or tumors. To figure out what happened, paleontologists, scientists who study ancient life, often work with medical experts, including doctors and veterinarians. They use CT scanners and special microscopes to study the inside of the fossil bones, looking for clues. They also compare the dinosaurs' bones with those of modern animals, such as birds and reptiles, to guess what kinds of diseases they might have had. Just like modern animals, dinosaurs probably could catch and spread diseases to each other. A virus or bacteria might have spread through herds, especially if the animals lived close together. Dinosaurs that hunted or fought each other might have passed infections through bites or scratches. Parasites, like ticks or fleas, could also have been a problem, though those soft-bodied creatures are rarely preserved as fossils. Some fossils of dinosaurs even show bite marks that became infected. One fossil of a Tyrannosaurus rex had a jawbone full of holes that might have been caused by a parasite infection that spread from prey. The infection may have become so bad that it made it hard for the dinosaur to eat, possibly leading to its death. The fact that dinosaurs got sick reminds us that disease is not something new. It has been part of life for hundreds of millions of years. Even these powerful, massive creatures were not safe from infections, injuries, and illnesses. Their world, though it may seem wild and magical to us, was full of real-life struggles, just like today's world. In a strange way, this makes dinosaurs feel more real. They were not just roaring monsters from movies. They were living creatures that could suffer, heal, and even grow old with aching bones. Their fossilized remains are more than just ancient bones. They are records of life, health, and pain written in stone. One of the strongest pieces of evidence points to a massive asteroid crashing into Earth. This asteroid was probably about 6 to 10 miles wide. That's as big as a mountain. It slammed into what is now the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, creating a huge crater over 100 miles wide. This event is called the Chicxulub impact. The force of the impact was unimaginable. It would have caused giant fires, sent huge waves across the oceans, and thrown so much dust and ash into the air that sunlight was blocked for months or even years. Without sunlight, plants began to die. And without plants, herbivorous dinosaurs had nothing to eat. Once the plant eaters began to die, the meat eaters followed. It was like a chain reaction of collapse. The evidence for this impact is strong. Scientists have found a layer of rock all over the world that contains a rare metal called iridium. Iridium is common in asteroids, but rare on Earth. This layer was formed around 66 million years ago, the same time the dinosaurs vanished. That's why many scientists believe the asteroid was the main cause of the extinction. But there's more to the story. Around the same time as the asteroid impact, huge volcanoes in what is now India were erupting non-stop. These eruptions created a region known as the Deccan Traps, which covers an area nearly as large as all of France. Lava spilled out for thousands of years, But it wasn't just the lava that was deadly, it was also the gases. The volcanoes released enormous amounts of carbon dioxide and other gases into the air. These gases made the planet hotter and filled the atmosphere with toxic fumes. Over time, this would have changed the climate. Oceans became warmer and more acidic, and the land became harder to live on. Plants and animals struggled to survive. Some scientists believe that these volcanic eruptions may have already weakened many species, making it easier for the asteroid impact to deliver the final blow. In this view, the Earth was already under stress, and the asteroid was the tipping point. Even before the asteroid and the volcanic eruptions, the Earth's climate was changing. The world was cooling in some places and warming in others. Sea levels were rising and falling. These shifts would have affected where dinosaurs could live, what plants grew, and how ecosystems worked. Climate change on its own might not have been enough to wipe out all the dinosaurs, but added to the asteroid and the volcanoes, it could have played a powerful supporting role in the extinction event. Think of it like a puzzle. Each piece, climate shifts, volcanoes, and the asteroid, fit together to form the complete picture of disaster. The most likely explanation is that all three causes, asteroid impact, volcanic eruptions, and climate change, happened close together in time and made the Earth extremely hostile. Dinosaurs, along with many other creatures, were caught in the middle of this chaos. Birds, small mammals, and other animals that could adapt quickly, hide underground, or survive with less food, had a better chance. But for the large dinosaurs that needed a lot of space and food, the sudden changes were simply too much. Although the death of the dinosaurs was a tragic moment in Earth's history, it also opened the door for something new. After the extinction, mammals began to rise. Over millions of years, some of them evolved into the animals we see today. The disappearance of the dinosaurs is one of the greatest mysteries in Earth's long history. For many years, scientists have been trying to answer a big question. Did the dinosaurs vanish all at once in a sudden, dramatic event? Or did they slowly die out over thousands of years? To understand this, we have to travel back in time, way back around 66 million years ago. This was near the end of a time period called the Cretaceous, the final chapter of the age of dinosaurs. All across the world, dinosaurs of all shapes and sizes were thriving. There were fierce hunters like Tyrannosaurus rex, long-necked giants like Argentinosaurus, and armored tank-like creatures such as Ankylosaurus. They ruled the land while flying reptiles soared through the skies and giant sea monsters patrolled the oceans. But then something changed. One idea that many scientists support is that dinosaurs disappeared very quickly, almost in the blink of an eye, at least in geological terms. This theory points to a sudden catastrophe that happened about 66 million years ago. A giant asteroid, around 6 miles wide, smashed into what is now the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. The impact created a huge crater called the Chicxulub crater. This explosion would have been unimaginably powerful, more than 1 billion times stronger than the atomic bombs dropped during World War II. The asteroid strike caused massive fires, earthquakes, and towering waves called tsunamis. But that wasn't all. The crash threw so much dust, ash, and tiny rock particles into the sky that it blocked sunlight for weeks, months, or even years. This turned the world dark and cold. Plants struggled to grow, and as the plants died, so did the animals that ate them. The meat-eaters soon followed, having nothing left to feed on. According to this idea, the extinction of most dinosaurs may have happened in just a few days, weeks, or perhaps a few short years after the asteroid hit. That's why many scientists say it was sudden. However, not everyone agrees that the dinosaurs vanished in a single, sudden moment. Some scientists believe their disappearance might have been slower and more complicated. They point to signs that dinosaur populations may have already been declining for thousands, even millions of years before the asteroid arrived. There's evidence that during the last few million years of the Cretaceous period, Earth's climate was changing. Temperatures were becoming less stable. Some areas were getting cooler, while others were growing hotter and drier. This may have made life harder for some dinosaur species, especially the ones that depended on certain kinds of plants or lived in specific habitats. Also, during the same time, enormous volcanic eruptions were taking place in what is now India. These eruptions created a massive region of hardened lava called the Deccan Traps. The volcanoes released huge amounts of gases like sulfur and carbon dioxide into the air. These gases could have caused acid rain, polluted the air, and warmed or cooled the planet in strange and harmful ways. This may have stressed ecosystems all over the globe, making it tougher for plants and animals to survive. So, it's possible that the dinosaurs were already weakened by changes in the climate and environment, and the asteroid was just the final blow, the last strike that finished them off. Fossils are like clues left behind from the past. They can tell us a lot, but not everything. In many parts of the world, scientists have discovered a thin layer of rock that separates the Cretaceous period from the period that came after, called the Paleogene. This layer contains a rare element called iridium, which is found in asteroids. Right below this layer, we find dinosaur fossils, but right above it, none. This suggests that the dinosaurs disappeared very suddenly, right around the time of the asteroid impact. During the time of the dinosaurs, a truly amazing creature lived in what is now China. This ancient animal was a type of long-necked dinosaur, and scientists have given it a powerful and mysterious name, Qijianglong, which means dragon of Qijiang. The real identity of the dragon of Qijianglong is not a mythical creature, but a real dinosaur that once walked the Earth during the late Jurassic period. This was a time that began about 163 million years ago and ended around 145 million years ago. Qijianglong lived near the end of this period, when the land was covered with lush plants, and many strange and giant creatures roamed freely. Qijianglong was a kind of sauropod, the group of dinosaurs known for their long necks, long tails, and huge bodies. Sauropods include some of the biggest animals that have ever lived on land. What makes Qijianglong special among this group is the shape and design of its neck bones. While many sauropods had strong but short necks made for carrying massive heads, Qijianglong had something different. Its neck was extremely long, light and flexible, almost like a crane arm or a giant bendy straw. This dinosaur likely belonged to a special subgroup of sauropods called mamenchisaurids, which were famous for having the longest necks of any known dinosaurs. Some mamenchisaurids had necks that stretched over 15 meters long, longer than a school bus. Imagine an animal with a body the size of a large truck and a neck that could reach up into the treetops or swing far to the sides like a snake on stilts. That was what the dragon of Qijiang may have looked like. Fossils of Qijianglong were discovered in the Qijiang district near the city of Chongqing in southwestern China. In the year 2015, paleontologists officially named and described the creature based on these fossil remains. What they found was a mostly complete neck, backbone, and skull bones. These bones showed that Qijianglong's neck had a strange feature. The vertebrae, the bones that made up the neck, were fused together in certain parts. This made the neck strong but also very light, like a bridge made out of hollow tubes. The discovery was exciting for scientists, not just because it added a new name to the dinosaur family tree, but because it helped them understand more about how sauropods adapted to different environments. For example, the long neck of Qijianglong might have allowed it to feed on leaves high in the trees or to graze widely over the ground without moving its massive body very much. This would save energy and help it survive in places where food was spread out or hard to reach. Qijianglong was probably not a fast runner. Like most sauropods, it walked slowly on 4 thick, strong legs, supporting its huge body like columns holding up a building. Its head was small compared to its body, and its teeth were shaped for stripping leaves from branches, not for chewing meat. It likely had a long tail that balanced out its neck, helping it keep steady as it moved through ancient forests and open plains. Even though Zhejianglong has the word dragon in its name, it didn't breathe fire or fly through the sky. Still, to the people who discovered its bones and imagined what it must have looked like, it truly seemed like a dragon from ancient Chinese legends. Its long, snake-like neck, mysterious shape, and powerful presence made it feel magical, just like the mythical dragons that are such an important part of Chinese culture. So the dragon of Zhejianglong was not a creature of fantasy, but a real, living dinosaur that once roamed the earth more than 145 million years ago. Its body was shaped by nature to survive in a world full of giants, and its discovery reminds us that the past was filled with animals even more amazing than the creatures of myth and story. The question of whether Spinosaurus was more at home in water or on land has puzzled scientists for many years. This enormous dinosaur, which lived around 100 million years ago during the Cretaceous period, had some truly strange features. It looked different from most other carnivorous dinosaurs, and these unusual body parts gave scientists important clues about the way it lived. But figuring out exactly where it spent most of its time, on land or in water, has not been easy. Spinosaurus was one of the largest meat-eating dinosaurs that ever lived, possibly even bigger than Tyrannosaurus rex. It could grow to more than 50 feet long and may have weighed as much as 7 tons. But what made it really stand out was the long, sail-like structure on its back, made up of tall spines that grew out of its vertebrae. It also had a long, narrow snout full of sharp, cone-shaped teeth, more like the jaws of a crocodile than a typical land-hunting dinosaur. Its nose was placed high on its skull, almost like a snorkel, and its short back legs and wide, flat feet were not ideal for running. All of this made scientists wonder, was this dinosaur really built for walking and hunting on land, or was it more suited for a watery life? At first, most scientists thought Spinosaurus was a land predator, like other large theropods. But discoveries made in the early 2000s, especially in 2014, started to change that view. Fossils found in North Africa, including skull parts, limb bones, and even tail vertebrae, suggested something different. The most exciting clue came when researchers discovered that Spinosaurus had a long, paddle-like tail, which could have helped it swim by moving side to side, like a crocodile's tail. This tail discovery was very important. Before that, many believed Spinosaurus might have just waded into water to catch fish, but not really swam through it. Now, with this new evidence, it seemed that Spinosaurus was more than just a fisherman waiting at the riverbank. It could have actually chased after prey in the water. Further studies of the bones showed that they were unusually dense and heavy, especially in the limbs and tail. This kind of bone structure is also found in animals like penguins and manatees that spend much of their lives underwater. Heavy bones make it easier for animals to stay underwater instead of floating to the surface. This added weight would have helped Spinosaurus dive and stay submerged while swimming. Its nostrils were located far back on its head, allowing it to breathe while most of its snout stayed underwater. Its flat, wide feet might have even had webbing, and its strong arms, which were unusual for a big carnivorous dinosaur, may have helped it move through water or hold on to slippery prey, like fish. And what kind of fish? Fossil evidence suggests that Spinosaurus lived in a region full of giant freshwater fish, some of them over 6 feet long, along with giant turtles and crocodile-like reptiles. So, its long jaws and conical teeth were perfect for grabbing these animals without breaking them apart again, just like a crocodile. Even though Spinosaurus seems to have been very well adapted for swimming and hunting in rivers or swamps, that doesn't mean it never walked on land. It probably still came onto dry ground to lay eggs, rest, or move between different water bodies. Some scientists argue that its legs were too short and weak for long-distance walking or fast running, while others believe it could still move well enough on land, just more slowly than other large dinosaurs. Titanosaurs were some of the biggest animals to ever walk on land. These giant, plant-eating dinosaurs had massive, powerful bodies with long necks and tails. Some of them could grow longer than 37 meters and weigh more than 70 tons, more than 10 elephants put together. But even though they were so enormous, they had surprisingly small skulls compared to the rest of their huge bodies. Their heads looked tiny. So why did such gigantic creatures have such small skulls? One important reason titanosaurs had small skulls is that their heads did not need to be large. These dinosaurs were not meat-eaters that needed sharp teeth or big jaws to hunt prey. Instead, they ate plants, lots and lots of plants. Their teeth were shaped like spoons or pencils, perfect for stripping leaves from branches, but not for chewing or grinding food. They simply grabbed the plants, swallowed them, and let their huge stomachs do the work of breaking it all down. Because they didn't chew their food, titanosaurs didn't need big skulls full of muscles or strong jaws. Their heads didn't have to carry heavy bones or large chewing teeth. A small, lightweight skull was actually more useful because it helped balance their long necks. Titanosaurs had necks that could stretch up to 15 meters long. That's as long as a school bus. Holding up such a long neck would be very hard if the head at the end of it were heavy. By having small skulls, titanosaurs could move their necks more easily and reach high trees or low plants without using too much energy. Their light heads made their necks more flexible and easier to support, like a fishing rod with a small hook at the end instead of a heavy anchor. This design helped titanosaurs eat without walking too much. They could stay in one spot and just move their necks to reach food in many directions. A small skull at the tip of a long neck made this feeding style possible. Another reason for their small skulls is that titanosaurs didn't have very large brains. Their brains were small compared to their massive bodies, no bigger than a grapefruit in some species. But that doesn't mean they were dumb. Titanosaurs simply didn't need smart brains to survive. They were not predators that had to plan hunts or chase prey. Their job was to eat plants and avoid danger, which didn't require a lot of thinking. In fact, having a small brain may have been helpful. Brains use a lot of energy, so having a small one saved fuel. This was important for an animal that already needed tons of food each day just to stay alive. Over millions of years, titanosaurs and their close relatives evolved bodies that worked best for their plant-eating lifestyle. Smaller heads helped them balance their necks, save energy, and feed more easily. So, natural selection favored dinosaurs with smaller skulls because they survived better and had more babies. This is similar to how giraffes today have long necks and small heads to reach leaves high in the trees. It's a design that works well for tall, plant-eating animals. Titanosaurs were like giant prehistoric giraffes, but many times bigger. It's important to remember that not all dinosaurs had small heads. Meat-eaters, like Tyrannosaurus rex, had big, heavy skulls with powerful jaws and sharp teeth for biting prey. Their heads needed to be large to do their job. But plant-eating dinosaurs like titanosaurs didn't need that kind of head. Instead, they focused on being huge and eating lots of vegetation. Sauropods were the largest land animals that ever lived. These gentle giants had long necks, long tails, and enormous bodies supported by 4 thick, pillar-like legs. But there has always been a big question about how they moved and behaved. Could they stand up on their back legs, just like elephants sometimes do today? This idea has fascinated scientists and dinosaur fans for a very long time. Standing on 2 legs would have allowed a sauropod to reach even higher into the trees, to eat leaves and branches that were far above the ground. It would also have made them look even more impressive and powerful. One of the first things to consider is how incredibly heavy sauropods were. Some of the largest species, like Argentinosaurus, may have weighed as much as 80 or even 100 tons. That's as much as more than a dozen elephants combined. Even smaller sauropods still weighed many tons. All that weight had to be supported by their skeletons, muscles, and joints. So standing up on only their back legs would have put a lot of pressure on their spine, hips, and tail. Unlike elephants, which are much smaller in comparison, sauropods needed a special kind of body structure to even attempt such a move. Fossils give us clues. Some sauropods, like Barosaurus, had special features in their spine and hips that may have helped them rear up. Their bones were strong but lightweight because they had air spaces inside them, like the bones of birds today. This made their bodies easier to lift. In the year 2011, a group of scientists used computers to model how a sauropod's body might move. They studied the bones and muscles and concluded that Barosaurus probably could have reared up, using its long, powerful tail as a third leg for balance. Think of it like a tripod, two back legs and the tail working together to support the rest of the body. They believed that a rearing sauropod could raise its front half several meters off the ground, letting it feed from treetops over 10 meters high, higher than a giraffe can reach. This ability would have been especially useful in times when food was scarce near the ground. However, standing on two legs was not something all sauropods could do. It depended on their body shape, tail length, and hip strength. Some sauropods had short tails and heavy front bodies, which would make rearing up very difficult or even dangerous. If they lost balance, they could fall and injure themselves badly. Others had long muscular tails and necks that could move freely. These were more likely to be able to rear up, at least for a short time. But even for them, it would not have been something they did all the time. It would take a lot of energy and strength, and it would have only been worth it if they really needed to reach higher food, or possibly to defend themselves. Some scientists think rearing up might have also been used in fights or displays. Like modern-day animals that rise up to look bigger or more threatening, a sauropod could have reared to scare off a predator or to impress other sauropods. However, this idea is still just a theory. There is no direct fossil evidence of this behavior, only clues from bones and comparisons to living animals. Also, while elephants can rear up quite often to reach branches or defend themselves, they do not weigh as much as sauropods, and their body is better suited for this motion, so it's not a perfect comparison. Dinosaurs did make nests, and this discovery has helped scientists understand a lot more about how dinosaurs lived, cared for their young, and even how some of them might have behaved like modern birds. When we think of nests today, we often picture birds building them out of twigs and leaves in trees. But dinosaurs were much bigger than birds, and most of them didn't live in trees. Their nests were very different. Many dinosaurs built their nests on the ground. Some made shallow pits in the dirt or sand where they laid their eggs, while others carefully arranged their eggs in neat circles or spirals. Fossils of these nests have been found in many places around the world, including places like Mongolia, Argentina, and the United States. The first real proof of dinosaur nests was found in the year 1923 during an expedition in the Gobi Desert in Mongolia. Scientists discovered fossilized eggs that were clearly arranged in a pattern. At first, people thought the eggs belonged to a type of lizard or some ancient bird. But later, more discoveries helped confirm that these were actually dinosaur eggs, and they were found inside what used to be a nest. Some of the best-known nest builders were dinosaurs called hadrosaurs. These were duck-billed, plant-eating dinosaurs, and another group known as oviraptors. Fossils of oviraptors have even been found sitting on their nests, just like a bird might sit on her eggs to keep them warm. In fact, the name oviraptor, which means egg thief, was given before scientists realized this dinosaur wasn't stealing eggs. It was actually protecting its own. These nests also tell us something amazing. Some dinosaurs cared for their babies. In some fossil sites, baby dinosaurs have been found in or near nests, and their bones show signs that they stayed in the nest for a while after hatching. That means the parents might have brought them food or protected them while they grew. This is called parental care, and it's something we also see in birds and some other animals today. Some nests were very simple, just shallow holes where eggs were laid, and then covered with sand or vegetation to keep them warm. Other nests were more complex. In places like Montana, scientists found huge nesting grounds with dozens of nests close together, almost like a dinosaur nursery. These sites suggest that some dinosaurs returned to the same place every year to lay their eggs, just like sea turtles and some birds do today. One famous dinosaur, Maiasaura, whose name means good mother lizard, was discovered in the 1970s. Fossils of Maiasaura nests showed baby dinosaurs that were too young to walk when they died. That means they probably stayed in the nest, depending on their parents. This was one of the first solid clues that some dinosaurs might have been very caring parents. Even the size and shape of dinosaur eggs can teach us something. Some were round, others were more oval-shaped, and they came in all kinds of sizes. Some were as small as a chicken egg, while others were longer than a football. The shell of the egg can also be studied under a microscope. Some had tiny pores or holes to let air in and out, just like bird eggs today. All of these discoveries help us paint a picture of dinosaur life millions of years ago. Making nests, laying eggs, and caring for babies are behaviors that connect dinosaurs to birds in a deep and meaningful way. In fact, scientists now believe that birds are not just related to dinosaurs. They are dinosaurs. The birds we see in our gardens and forests today are distant cousins of those ancient creatures that built nests in the sand and guarded their eggs under the sun. Dinosaurs like Argentinosaurus, one of the largest creatures to ever walk the earth, were simply too massive to ever climb a tree. We're talking about animals that were longer than a basketball court and weighed more than 10 elephants. A creature like that couldn't even stand next to a tree without probably knocking it over. So, for the giant plant eaters and heavy meat eaters, tree climbing was clearly out of the question. Here's where things get interesting. Not all dinosaurs were giants. In fact, some were no bigger than a chicken or a house cat. These smaller dinosaurs, especially those from a group called Maniraptorans, might have had the ability to climb. Maniraptorans include feathered dinosaurs closely related to modern birds. Some of these dinosaurs had sharp claws, long arms, and flexible bodies, features that could help with climbing. One example is Microraptor, a small dinosaur that lived about 120 million years ago. It was about the size of a crow and had feathers not just on its arms, but also on its legs and tail. Many scientists believe Microraptor may have been able to glide through the air like a flying squirrel. But to glide, you first have to get up high. So, how did it get into the trees? Climbing might be the answer. Paleontologists, scientists who study ancient life, have looked closely at the shape of some dinosaur bones to figure out how these animals might have moved. In tree-climbing animals today, like monkeys or squirrels, the bones in the hands and feet are curved with strong claws for gripping. Some small dinosaurs also had curved claws and long, grasping fingers. This has led some experts to think they could have been good climbers. The claws of Troodon, a small, smart dinosaur with large eyes and a light body, were sharp and curved. These traits are useful not just for catching prey, but also for holding on to tree bark. Could Troodon have used its claws to scramble up trees to escape danger, or to hunt from above? It's possible. During the Mesozoic era, which lasted from about 250 million years ago to about 66 million years ago, The world was full of forests. Some places had towering conifer trees, while others had lush, leafy plants and tree ferns. These forests were home to insects, reptiles, small mammals, and possibly tree-climbing dinosaurs. In this green, tangled world, being able to climb could give a small dinosaur a big advantage, whether for escaping predators, reaching food, or gliding from one branch to another. Since birds evolved from small, feathered dinosaurs, it's not a stretch to think that at least some of their ancient cousins were also tree climbers. Once in a while, paleontologists find a dinosaur fossil that appears to have been caught in the act of sleeping. One of the most famous examples is a small dinosaur called Mei, which means sleeping dragon in Chinese. This little creature was found in China in the early 2000s in a fossil bed that dates back about 125 million years. What made it so special was its sleeping pose. It had its head tucked under one arm, just like how birds today sleep with their heads under their wings. Its tail was curled around its body. This gave scientists a big clue. At least some small, bird-like dinosaurs probably slept in cozy, curled-up positions. Birds and crocodiles are the closest living relatives of dinosaurs. Modern birds, especially ground-dwelling ones like chickens and ostriches, sleep by tucking their heads into their feathers and sitting down on the ground. Some can even sleep while standing up, balancing on one leg. Crocodiles, on the other hand, usually lie flat on their stomachs to sleep. Sometimes they even keep one eye open to watch for danger, a skill known as uni-hemispheric sleep, which means only half their brain rests at a time. Some scientists wonder if certain dinosaurs might have done something similar, especially the ones that lived in dangerous environments and needed to stay alert. By comparing dinosaur skeletons to birds and crocodiles, scientists can make educated guesses about how different dinosaurs might have rested. For example, theropods, two-legged meat-eaters like Velociraptor and Tyrannosaurus rex, had flexible necks and often balanced their bodies over two strong legs, which means they might have crouched down to sleep, much like a resting bird. Giant dinosaurs like Brachiosaurus or Apatosaurus weighed many tons, sometimes more than 50 tons. These massive creatures had thick, pillar-like legs and long necks. Could they have simply flopped down on the ground for a nap? That might sound risky. If they fell wrong or had trouble getting up again, it could be dangerous, especially if predators were nearby. Some experts think these giant plant-eaters may have dozed while standing up, just like modern elephants do today. Elephants sometimes sleep lying down, but only for short periods, and often nap while standing to avoid danger. If giant sauropods behaved the same way, it would make sense. They were so large that lying down could have been a slow, awkward process. Some dinosaurs likely guarded their nests while resting. Fossils of Oviraptor, a bird-like dinosaur, have been found in a brooding position, sitting directly over eggs with arms spread out, just like a mother bird today. This position suggests that these dinosaurs might have slept or at least rested while protecting their eggs. Another question is whether dinosaurs slept alone or in groups. Some fossil sites show many dinosaurs buried together in what might have been herds or family groups. This suggests that at least some species may have slept in groups for safety, just like some birds and mammals today. By resting close to each other, dinosaurs could protect one another from hungry predators. Herds of young Maiasaura, for example, seem to have stayed near their parents in nests. So it's possible they may have all rested or slept close together, much like a cozy family. Were dinosaurs awake in the daytime or at night? This depends on the species. By looking closely at the shape of their eye sockets and the bones that supported their eyes, scientists can tell if a dinosaur was probably diurnal, active during the day, nocturnal, active at night, or something in between. For example, Troodon, a small, fast dinosaur with very large eyes, might have been active at night and rested during the day. On the other hand, big herbivores probably napped during both day and night, grabbing bits of rest in between feeding times. Raptors, also known as deinonychosaurs, were a group of small to medium-sized predatory dinosaurs that lived during the Cretaceous period. That period lasted from about 145 million years ago to around 66 million years ago. Famous members of the raptor family include Velociraptor, Deinonychus, and Utahraptor. What made these dinosaurs so special, besides their brains and speed, was the big, curved claw on the second toe of each foot. This claw was long, sharp, and sickle-shaped. In some raptors, it could grow as long as 15 cm. That's about 6 inches. For many years, scientists believed that raptors used their sharp toe claws to slash and cut their prey open. This idea made sense at first. After all, the claws looked like deadly knives, but more recent studies have raised some doubts. In the early 2000s, paleontologists looked more closely at the shape and strength of the claws. They found that the claws weren't as sharp-edged as a sword or razor. Instead, they were more like strong hooks. Also, their curved shape and solid build made them better suited for gripping and holding, not slicing. One popular new idea is that raptors use their claws not to slash, but to hold on to prey. Imagine a raptor jumping on the back of a struggling dinosaur and using its claws like grappling hooks to hang on. Its strong legs would dig in with those hooked claws, keeping it in place while it bit into the animal with its sharp teeth. Some scientists also believe that the claws may have been useful for climbing. Smaller raptors, especially those with lighter bodies, might have used their claws to climb trees. If that's true, it could mean that at least some raptors were excellent tree climbers and maybe even ambush predators that jumped down from above. In fact, in the year 2011, a study of modern birds of prey, like eagles and hawks, found that their claws worked in similar ways. They don't usually slash. Instead, they grip tightly and pierce. Raptors, being ancient relatives of birds, might have hunted in a similar style, grabbing and holding their prey rather than slicing it. Another possible use of the claw was stabbing. Instead of cutting across prey, raptors may have jabbed downwards into their victims, especially into softer body parts like the belly or neck. The pointed claw would have acted more like a dagger than a sword. Some scientists believe Ankylosaurus, a raptor from around 115 million years ago, may have attacked in packs. If that's true, then a group of raptors could have pinned down a large plant-eating dinosaur and taken turns stabbing it with their claws while tearing it apart with their teeth. It's also possible that raptor claws had more than one job. Maybe they were used for hunting, climbing, and even for balance. Some raptors had tails stiffened with long bones, which could have helped them stay upright while balancing on their toes and digging into prey with their claws. Another thing to remember is that dinosaurs didn't live like robots. They were living animals, and they probably used their claws in smart, flexible ways, depending on the situation. Just like a cat uses its claws to scratch, climb, or hold down food, raptors may have done the same. When we think about dinosaurs, many people imagine scaly, green, or grey monsters like the ones seen in old movies. But how do scientists really know what dinosaur skin looked like, especially when these creatures died out more than 65 million years ago? After all, skin is soft and usually rots away long before it can turn into a fossil. Bones last a long time. But skin, that's much harder to preserve. So how do we figure it out? The answer lies in rare and amazing fossil discoveries, combined with careful detective work by paleontologists, the scientists who study ancient life. Every once in a while, something truly special happens. A dinosaur dies, and instead of its soft body parts disappearing right away, it gets buried very quickly under mud, sand, or ash. When that happens, the soft skin can leave an impression in the surrounding material, almost like a footprint in wet cement. Over time, the mud or sand hardens into rock, and the skin imprint is preserved like a natural stamp. These impressions are called skin fossils or skin impressions, and they show the texture and patterns that the dinosaur's skin had. From these, we can tell if the skin was covered in small bumps called scales, larger armor-like plates, or sometimes even tiny feather-like structures. One of the first well-known skin impressions came from a duck-billed dinosaur called Edmontosaurus. Its skin impressions showed that it had a bumpy, pebbly texture, similar to that of a lizard or crocodile today. These fossils were found in North America and date back to around 66 million years ago. In some extremely rare cases, scientists have found what they call mummified dinosaurs. These are not real mummies, like in ancient Egypt, but rather fossils, where the skin, muscles, and even internal organs were preserved in great detail. How? In these rare cases, the dinosaur's body dried out quickly, almost like jerky, before being buried. This stopped bacteria and other natural forces from destroying the soft parts. One famous example is a nodosaur, a type of armored, plant-eating dinosaur that was found in Canada in the year 2011. It was so well preserved that its skin still had patterns and bumps, and its armor plates were still in place. Scientists said it looked like a statue made of stone. The creature had been buried underwater after death, and the conditions helped preserve its outer appearance for over 110 million years. Over the last 30 years, especially since the 1990s, fossils found in China have completely changed the way we imagine dinosaurs. Some small, meat-eating dinosaurs were found with feathery impressions around their bodies. These fossils are about 120 million years old. The most famous of these is Sinosauropteryx, which had a fluffy covering of what looked like short, primitive feathers. Later discoveries showed even more complex feathers on creatures like Microraptor, a small four-winged dinosaur that could probably glide from tree to tree. These discoveries proved that feathers didn't just belong to birds, they came from dinosaurs. Thanks to these fossils, scientists now believe that many meat-eating dinosaurs, especially the smaller ones, had feathers. That means animals like Velociraptor may not have looked like the scaly reptiles in movies, but more like scary feathered birds. For many years, scientists could only guess at dinosaur colors. But now that is beginning to change. Some fossilized feathers and skin impressions have tiny structures called melanosomes. These are little parts inside cells that carry pigment, the same kinds found in bird feathers today. By looking at the shape and arrangement of these melanosomes under a microscope, scientists can figure out the likely color of the feathers. For example, a dinosaur with long, sausage-shaped melanosomes might have had black or gray feathers, while round ones might mean reddish or brown colors. In 2010, scientists examined a fossil of Anchiornis, a small feathered dinosaur from about 160 million years ago, and managed to recreate its color pattern. They found that it had a black and white body with a reddish crest, almost like a prehistoric woodpecker. Even when fossils don't tell the full story, scientists use something called comparative anatomy. This means they look at animals living today that are related to dinosaurs. Birds are the closest relatives of dinosaurs still alive, and crocodiles are distant cousins too. By comparing how birds and reptiles grow feathers, scales, or colors, paleontologists can make educated guesses about dinosaur skin and appearance. For example, both birds and crocodiles have tough, scaly skin on their feet. This tells scientists that many dinosaurs probably had a mix of scaly skin on some parts and maybe feathers or soft skin on others. They also study how color helps animals blend into their environment or scare off enemies to guess why dinosaurs might have had certain patterns.